My name's Tim Jones. I'm the proud owner of this little training company and delighted to have you here taking this Intro to Mac class. I want to find out a little bit about each of you, what brought you to a class, what your background is with computers, if you have any experience with Mac computers. I'd love to know that as well, and kind of what you hope to get out of today's session. As you can see from the board, what we have in store, at least in the scheduled curriculum, is first we're going to look at just exploring the computer, the physicality of it, the ins and outs, and what's in it. Then we'll look at using the mouse and trackpad, different techniques there, explore the desktop. We'll look at using a window, working with the Finder application, using other software applications, how to search for files and applications, and lastly, how to personalize or customize your Mac. So that's kind of what I had on the agenda, but if you've got other areas that we need to get into as well, I'm happy to try to make detours as appropriate. Who wants to start? All right, at your stations, there's a little quick reference guide. For this Intro Mac class, this is really all we provide. We don't try to overwhelm our students with 30, 40, 50-page course handout. But we do, for our other classes, provide much more robust handouts, usually, like I said, 30, 40, 50 pages. This covers what we're going to be getting into in terms of the scheduled curriculum at I think, a sufficient level without being overwhelming. To start with, let's take a look at the computer itself. Even how to connect it might be a mystery to a newcomer to the Mac platform. On the first page of the quick reference guide, you can see a couple of different models of Macintosh computers, the iMac and a MacBook Pro, their laptop. There are several other models of Macs available. The Mac Mini is the kind of computer that you've actually got on this desktop in front of you. You can see that just to the left of your monitor, left of your display. And then in addition to the two that are shown here, there's also a big tower type of structure called the Mac Pro. That's a real workhorse. It's their powerhouse computer designed primarily for people doing a lot of video editing. Recording studios might implement a Mac Pro for heavy-duty digital audio workstation kind of work. Engineers doing a ton of number crunching, statistical analysis might need a Mac Pro. But the iMac, the Mac Mini, and the MacBooks, either the MacBook Air or MacBook Pro, both of them are the laptop configuration, are usually more than sufficient power for the typical office worker or home user. As you know already from your work with PCs, computers have ways that we provide input to them. Then there's a processor chip that interprets that input, and then there's output, kind of that three-stage cycle: input, process, output. For input devices, obviously keyboard, mouse, trackpad, right? These are all different ways that we can tell the Mac what we want it to do. You've got keyboards that are either wired or wireless. I think all of you happen to sit today at stations where I've got wired keyboards and mice, but if you look towards the middle, you'll see a wireless keyboard and wireless mouse likewise. Now, the older models of keyboards and mice used batteries, and the newer ones have a port that you connect them to with a charging cable, exactly the same cable that you get with an iPhone, and they're interchangeable. This is a kind of a lightning connector, and that plugs into, this is the battery type. There's one of the Macs, I think, in the back row. Yes, exactly. It has a port. You can take a look. Phil is being our Vanna White, and he's holding it up there. There's a little port on the underneath side. Now, you cannot use the mouse while it's being charged. Likewise, you can't use the keyboard while it's being charged. But so do it overnight. But those rechargeable batteries, definitely a nice way to go. Now here's how you can tell if your keyboard or mouse, wireless keyboard or mouse, are getting low on battery. You can watch my screen on these middle monitors in between. Okay, you see me here spinning circles over Catalina Island. All right. There's a Bluetooth icon up here in kind of the utility area of the menu bar. It's represented by that, well, you probably recognize the Bluetooth icon, that little squiggly thing there. And the battery icon next to it is telling me, hey Tim, you're low on battery somewhere, you need to pay attention. So I'm going to click that Bluetooth menu, and you can see that my Trainer A wireless keyboard is a low battery. It's telling me I'm at a battery level of 11%. My mouse, on the other hand, I'm full charged. Fresh batteries in that one. Okay? So the keyboard has buttons on the side, or well, one of them is a button. This is the power button that you'd use to kind of wake the keyboard up or turn it on. On the other side, there's a little slot that seems like a coin would fit in it. Here I've got a 1964 penny, and I'm going to change my keyboard battery just so that you know how easy it is, right? A couple of turns with a coin, dump out the AA batteries, put in some fresh ones. Positive side goes inward, head in, if you will, and tighten it back up again. Notice on my screen it says connection lost to the keyboard. Obviously when the keyboard got powered off from being empty of batteries, it lost the wireless connection, the Bluetooth connection to the computer. There we go, fresh batteries. Now I'm just going to press that power button, wake it up. A little green light should light up right here. And in a moment, there on the screen we see connected. The keyboard is back to connected. And as I check my Bluetooth icon now, let's see how we're doing. 100% battery. Okay? So simple little troubleshooting technique there. The same with the older mice. Again, the newer mice, you don't need batteries. They're rechargeable batteries inside. Just use that charging cable that came with the keyboard or mouse. I guess be diligent when you've got multiple people in the same cubicle space, the same office space, using wireless devices. It will only pair with one computer. And you're actually on a keyboard. You're asked to type in a 6-digit number to pair up with that particular computer. So they're not interchangeable. And if you want to interchange them, you're going to have to disconnect or tell that computer to forget about that device before you'll be able to really reliably take it over and use it on another.
Now, for troubleshooting purposes, standard keyboard, wired keyboard and mouse?
Yes, even a PC keyboard.
Right.
Absolutely, and mouse. In fact, although I love Mac mice, some people do prefer a PC traditionally maybe a PC mouse. Here's a nice Kensington mouse with the rubber sides on it. It's big and beefy, manly. It's a great mouse.
Okay.
Some people prefer that, and it works exactly the same. No configuration necessary. Most USB devices will just work. A keyboard, the first time you plug in a keyboard, the Mac may come up with a little keyboard kind of configuration window saying, I'm not sure what kind of keyboard this is. Is this an American keyboard or a Japanese keyboard or such and such? And so it'll ask you to do things like press the key that's located just to the right of the left shift key. And then likewise, press the key that's just to the left of the right shift key. And by doing so, it can then figure out that, oh, this is an ANSI, an ANSI keyboard, as opposed to some other language, or I think it's language. Very good. All right. Now, in addition to the input devices, of course, then we've got the processor. The processor is a chip inside the computer. For a long time, they have been made by Intel, but Apple, just within the last year or so, has started making their own chips called the M1 chip. And it's a very fast chip, but you will see some compatibility issues with software, for example. There's some software that won't work on the new M1 chip yet, and so if you've got somebody bringing a brand new Mac into the shop that has the M1 chip, you're going to want to do some research before you just assume that all the software that you typically install in-house is compatible with that new Apple M1 chip. Okay?
Can you identify if it's got the...
Very good. On every Mac, you go to the Apple menu here and choose About This Mac. And it will give you a brief summary of the configuration of that Mac. You can see what operating system version it's running. Okay, we're running 10.15.7 here in this room, which is codenamed Catalina. It tells you the model of the Mac. This is an iMac. Not a new iMac, mind you. It's due for a replacement soon. It tells you what processor chip is in it. You can see that this is running the Intel Core i5 processor chip right here. and it would say Apple M1 if it were using that newer chip. Yeah, very easy to learn quickly about the Mac that you're working with. And then, of course, if you need more detailed information, you've got these tabs across the top for displays, storage, memory, and so forth. Yeah, very good question. And then output, in terms of that three-stage process, the most common output device, of course, is your screen or display or monitor. Perhaps a printer could be considered an output device. To kind of segue from that, let's take a look at some of the connections, how we connect those external devices to the Mac. Okay? Without you having to get up, well, actually, you guys in the middle row could turn around and look at the Mac Minis behind you. But I've also got one here, so if you want to look forward. In terms of connections on the Mac Mini, all the ports are on the back. You've got one for power or electricity. Then Ethernet networking, pretty standard. The big RJ45 connector goes in there, right? Now on these older Mac Minis, these are not the brand new models. I'll show you a picture of a brand new model so you know what's coming in nowadays. But there's a FireWire port, which was for old high-speed external devices, hard drives, typically, right? FireWire was a pretty rapid throughput connection type, but it's been replaced as things, technology's gotten better and better. It's gotten replaced by what's called Thunderbolt, which we'll talk about in a second. But the FireWire has that kind of a Y-shaped icon to it. Then HDMI, which has for a long time now been a really good strong standard for video and audio, right? You connect your external displays to that HDMI port. Then we've got a Thunderbolt port here that's similar to the kind that I just mentioned, but this is the older, I think, Thunderbolt 2 configuration. It's kind of not quite a square port, but almost. And that's, again, typically going to be for external hard drives. There's a few other types of devices that you can connect via Thunderbolt, and it's getting more and more versatile as well. In the pictures that I'll show you coming up of the newer models, you'll see it's pretty much only Thunderbolt that they're using, but it's the new Thunderbolt 3. To the right of that, these Mac Minis have 4 USB-A ports, or just what we think of as standard USB ports. And that's where you'd connect things like printers, mice, keyboards, memory sticks, right? USB sticks, standard USB. These kinds of devices only can connect into USB of that shape and size, and they can only go one way. Part of it's plugged up, part of it's open, and so if you try to put it in upside down, it won't go. Lastly, you've got a couple of audio ports. There's a headphone jack port there. And then this slot here, also kind of going by the wayside, but that's for your camera memory card. Why am I missing the name on these?
SD.
Yeah, an SD card. Thank you very much. Exactly. It's an SD card slot. And so you can take your memory chip out, or memory card out of your digital camera. If it's the smaller kind, it usually comes with an adapter. Drop it in here, and it appears on the desktop as an external hard drive. In the same way that as I insert one of these USB sticks into a USB port on the back of this Mac, make sure I get it going the right way, it will appear momentarily over here. There we go. So that's my database backups USB stick. It appears there. Double click on it to open it up, and it's just another drive. Right? To eject it, this will make you chuckle. You drag it to the trash icon down here on the dock. Okay? Now fortunately, or you can right click on it and choose eject if you prefer. That feels a little safer perhaps. But dragging a removable like a thumb drive, an external hard drive, an optical drive if you're using CD-ROMs or DVDs, dragging it to the trash can. As soon as I start to drag this removable volume, notice the trash can icon changes to the eject icon. So you're not really throwing anything away, of course, you're just ejecting it.
It still says trash when you hover.
What's that again?
It still says trash when you hover.
It still says trash. It's still the trash icon, yeah. Yeah, and then it's safe to pull the device out or disconnect it. Okay, very good. Let me show you the ports on some of the other Mac models. I've got pictures of them pulled up here in a web browser. Here's the newer Mac Minis, okay? So like we had on the kind that I just showed you in person, you've got your power connector right here for electricity. Just to the left of it is the on-off button, which we're going to be pressing on these computers here in just a few moments. Then you've got Ethernet for gigabit Ethernet. Then comes the Thunderbolt ports. Technically it's called Thunderbolt version 3, and you can see how they are skinnier and a little more rounded on the corners, or rounded on the ends, I should say. They are reversible, so it's not like USB A, where it has to go one way or another. And into Thunderbolt ports you can connect displays, you can connect hard drives, you can connect USB sticks. Now you're thinking, wait a minute, how am I going to get printers, right? All sorts of devices can go in here. Well, I'll show you that next. But all sorts of devices. And if you're thinking, well, wait a minute, how would I connect, like my old-fashioned printer or something like that to, or a mouse or keyboard? Mouse and keyboard, of course, can go over here in the standard USB-A ports. USB sticks, memory sticks can go there as well. Printers can go there as well. But let's say you've got, a printer, a mouse, a keyboard, and a memory stick. And you've only got 2 of these ports. Well, you can buy an adapter, a dongle, if you will, that plugs into the Thunderbolt 3 port, also called USB 4, that gives you a whole bunch of additional ports from there. They'll give you a power port for connecting to electricity. They'll give you some more standard USB-A ports. They'll give you maybe a HDMI port so you can plug a display in. So these devices here, or these ports I should say, are much more diverse than you might think because of the availability of Apple and third-party dongles or adapters. Now the Mac Mini does come with an HDMI port, so you can plug your display straight into there, and then a couple of USB ports and a headphone jack as well. Any questions on the Mac Mini connections? Okay, let's take a look at the iMac. Now I've got an iMac up here, that's what I'm using, and it's the all-in-one form factor, an elegant computer, beautifully designed. The latest ones are, what are they, like 11 millimeters thick? It's just ridiculous how much they're packing into a small, thin, elegant display or form factor. But you can see how on the less expensive model, in terms of connection ports, you get 2. You get 2 Thunderbolt USB 4 ports, and they expect you to be able to use those for all your connections. So obviously, you're probably going to need to invest in one of those dongles, one of those adapters that gives you any additional ports that you might need, like standard USB for mice, keyboards, printers, USB sticks, and so on. Okay? And then on the more expensive model, you get 4 of them. 2 of them are Thunderbolt 3/USB 4, same thing. 2 of them are the slower USB 3, but it's still the same form factor, still the same connection type. I should have mentioned, that's where you plug your electricity into as well. Okay? And so somebody walks in with a new iMac, plan on asking them, well, what kinds of external devices do you need to physically connect to? Is everything wireless, or do you need an adapter? And I've had experience with several different brands of third-party adapters, and I've been happy with them all. So I don't know that you can really go wrong. Of course, I haven't tried them all, but get one that's well reviewed. I'll put it that way.
Is there an Ethernet jack on this?
No, that's why you're going to need a dongle. You're going to need an adapter, right? So the adapter will plug into one or sometimes both of these Thunderbolt 3/USB 4 ports, and then that gives you Ethernet, HDMI, a couple of USBs usually, just depending on the brand and model of adapter that you buy. They're assuming that the average iMac user is just going to go Wi-Fi, going to use wireless, or buy an adapter? Excellent question. All right, let's look at the slimmest and thinnest of all. This is the MacBook form factor. This is the MacBook Air, but even the MacBook Pros still only come with these same connection ports. Maybe a couple more of them, but of the same type. So on one side of the laptop, you're going to get a headphone jack, and on the other side, you're going to get 2 or 4 Thunderbolt 3/USB 4 ports. No Ethernet. Nothing extra for HDMI for connecting displays. It's all coming through these. Apple is really putting all their eggs in this Thunderbolt 3 basket. They're assuming that you'll be able to do everything you want with those. And so nearly everybody that I know that has a Mac laptop or even an iMac buys one of those adapters, those dongles that gives you multi-port capabilities. Good? Okay, fantastic. Lastly, let's talk a little bit about storage. Your computer comes with 2 areas of storage, one temporary, one permanent. Temporary versus permanent. Think, well, why do we need both? Well, here are examples of both the kinds of storage available in your computer. Hard drives. Now this is an older actual metal spinning cylinder hard drive, right? That's gone bad, and so I use it as show and tell. But the newer hard drives are solid-state drives, SSD drives. So there's no spinning metal parts to fail. They're more reliable, and they're a lot faster in terms of access. But they're still not as fast as RAM memory. Now here's a RAM memory chip called a SIM, standard inline memory module. And your computer needs both because it would be too slow for information to be read from and written to a hard drive if that was the only place that we stored information on our computer. And so computers use both hard drives to store your files and applications permanently, and they use this memory area to hold it while you're working on it. If you open up a program to work on it, it gets read from the hard drive into memory where the access times are thousands of times faster. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. The most important thing to remember here is that when something is copied into RAM memory so that you can work with it at the moment, RAM memory is what's called a volatile memory area. That means that it will be emptied if power goes out, or if you have to restart the computer because of a crash or any other problem. So it's important that when you're working on something that you save a copy of it to the permanent storage device, the hard drive, or other permanent storage device like a memory stick, frequently, so that you don't have to redo that work. All right, any questions? Fantastic. Well, to continue on, we need to get your computers up and running. Now, you'll find the power button just over to the, I guess it's going to be to the left of your power switch. So reach back there behind the Mac Mini on the left-hand side, find that roundish button, and press it. Other side. Yes.
Mine played music.
You should hear a chime. That's called the power on self-test, reporting to you that all the hardware is A-OK. Okay? If you don't get that chime, well, it could mean that there's a connection, it could mean that there's some kind of a cable connected into the headphone jack that the internal speaker from playing. But when you hear that chime, that's good news. That means that there's no problems with any of the internal components. It's going to take a bit to load all of the necessary programs and files to get the computer up and running. I have these training room computers set to automatically log in using a student account. But most Macs would come up with a prompt saying, who are you and what's your password? Okay? When you first buy a Mac and set it up, it'll ask you, who are you and what do you want your password to be? And it will then create an account for that person. You can create multiple user accounts on a computer, just like in the Windows operating system. The Mac supports is a multi-user operating system, so that if more than one person uses that computer, perhaps one person works the day shift, one person works the night shift, then each would log in to their own account. And the accounts, of course, keep their files separate from each other and unavailable to each other. Yes?
Going back to the port question, I know you showed us on these Mac Minis that they do have an Ethernet port. New Mac Minis? No Ethernet port?
The new Mac Mini does have an Ethernet port,
Okay.
so you won't need a dongle for the sake of connecting into your Ethernet network on the newer Mac Minis. But the MacBook, the laptops, either MacBook Air or MacBook Pro, no Ethernet, and likewise the iMac, no Ethernet port. So you'll need an adapter if you're going to hardwire into the network. Also, and I love this about Macs, it's why we have all Macs in the training room, you can partition the hard drive, and install Windows on the second partition. And then by simply holding down the Option key or the Alt key on a Windows keyboard, when you boot up, immediately before or during that chime that you heard, it will come up and ask you, what do you want to run today? You want to boot into the Mac OS or into the Windows OS? So in a training room environment like this one, that's just fantastic. We don't have to have two computers per desk. We can simply switch boot into the operating system of choice for the student who's going to sit in that chair. Keep in mind, though, that if you do that, and by the way, the technology that allows that comes for free with your Mac. It's called Boot Camp. Okay, you're obviously dividing the hard drive up into two partitions. So if you have let's say a 1 terabyte or 1,000 gigabyte hard drive, you're probably going to go 50-50 on it. So one hard drive becomes 500 gigabytes, the other hard drive or partition becomes 500 gigabytes, which limits the amount of space each of those two sides has in total. Okay? And you have to buy the Windows version of the software that you want to run on the Windows partition, like you would have to buy the Mac software to run on the Mac partition. The software isn't interchangeable, obviously. Completely different code altogether, even for things as common as Microsoft Office applications like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Okay, cool. Now that you've got your desktop up and running, let's take a look at just at common mouse techniques. By the way, if any of you had happened to sit where there was a wireless keyboard and or mouse, you might have to, before you could do anything, pick up that keyboard and mouse and turn it on. For example, here on my mouse there's a switch. I've got it on already and it's green right there. If I turn that switch off, you can see that in a moment on the screen the word connection lost or something like that will appear. There it is, right? So now my wireless mouse isn't working. I do that at night to save battery. Although generally speaking, the keyboard and mouse do kind of go to sleep or they go dormant so that they're not chewing up as much battery as they would if they were actively being used. But I think it does save a little bit of battery even so. So I'll switch it back on. Likewise with the wireless keyboards, of the older models, you would just press that button on the right side of the keyboard, boom, to wake it up or turn it on. On the newer keyboards, there's a switch with the same green color to indicate whether it's on or not. All right, there we go. My mouse has finally reconnected. Just like on a Windows computer, we do a single click with the left half of the mouse button to select something or to click a button or to pull down a menu. We use a single click with the right half of the mouse to do a right click to bring up a shortcut menu or a context menu, right? Now, if you're looking at your Apple mouse, you think, wait, there's only one button here, Tim. Well, it's actually two buttons, but the shell on top is not split like it is on a Windows mouse. So it literally depends on where you put your finger, right? A left click, a right click. It's pretty subtle, but you'll get the feel for it in no time at all. Let's try doing a left click on the Macintosh HD icon that's up in the top right corner of the desktop. icon, of course, represents the physical hard drive that's inside the computer. Do a one click on the left-hand side of the mouse button, and it selects that Macintosh HD icon. Likewise, point to the Intro to Mac folder that's on your desktop as well, and do a single click with the left mouse button. Oh boy. So that sound I heard means somebody just emptied the trash can. I hope it wasn't anything important that was in the trash. And that's the risk I take, letting strangers come into the training room. Was there something in the trash? I thought I had emptied all those trash cans last night before. Oh well. All right, we'll see what's missing. Likewise, if you do a right click, that is a single click with the right half of the mouse button over that Intro to Mac folder, for example, a shortcut menu will appear, giving you actions that are particular to whatever it is you right-clicked on, just like in the Windows operating system. When you want to choose one of those commands, for example, point to the Open command, then you go back to using the left mouse button to click it. As you choose the Open command by clicking it, a window opens up. We'll talk a lot about Windows here in an upcoming section of our time together, and shows you the contents of that Intro to Mac folder. A collection of files that I put together just so that we would have stuff to play with in class. Okay? Now, right-clicking and choosing Open isn't the most efficient way to open something. There's a faster way to do it. You can double-click. Double-clicking is a shortcut, just like right-clicking is really a shortcut, right? You could do everything that you wanted to do with just the three actions of point, click, and drag. But a right click, as you saw, is a great way to get a shortcut menu of actions or menu commands to appear from which you can choose easily. But those same commands would appear on the menus. For example, there was a command called Open on the right click menu. If we click the word, let's go back. Click once on the Intro to Mac folder, so that it's selected, and then click the File menu up in the menu bar. And you have commands that you can perform on that particular item, right? We could open it, we could get information about it, we could rename it, and so forth. We could duplicate it, make an alias to it. An alias is the same as a shortcut on the Windows platform. It's not a copy of the item, but it's something that looks like a copy of the item that just points to the original. You can put an alias places where you might want to have access to that item. All right. To make the menu go away, let's say we don't want to do anything from that file menu, just click away from it in an empty space of the desktop, and the menu will go away. Likewise, clicking on a window, here in the Intro to Mac window, for example, will make that window become active. An active window versus an inactive window changes its appearance slightly, becomes more vivid. See how the title bar up at the top is white while it's inactive and becomes gray when the window is active. And when that window is active, you can do things like click the File menu and choose Close Window. Right? Let's do that. Click File, choose Close Window, and that window closes. Of course, there was a Close button there as well, but we haven't learned that one yet, so we'll get to that later. So we've got point and click and right click. Finally, let's learn the double click technique. If you wanted to open something up, you can double click it. Again, point to the Intro to Mac folder and double click on it, 1, 2. The two clicks have to be within about a second or two of each other. If you do it too slowly, it'll be considered two single clicks as opposed to one double click. And the clicks have to be in the same spot. If your mouse wiggles even a little bit between the two clicks, it won't register as a double click. The last mouse technique that we need to look at is dragging. You drag by pointing to something in particular that you want to move or select, and you can press and hold the mouse button and then move the mouse around while you're holding the mouse button down. One practical reason to drag is to move windows or icons into other locations. You can move a window around on the Mac by pointing to its title bar. The title bar is the section of the window at the top where the window's title appears. But you don't have to click on the title, on the words itself. In fact, you probably shouldn't, because other things might happen if you do that. Point anywhere else along the title bar, with the exception of these three buttons on the left-hand side, of course, which we'll talk about momentarily. But if you point anywhere else in the title bar and press and hold your mouse, you can drag that window around the screen and place it wherever you'd like. You can also resize a window by pointing anywhere around its edge or corners, edges or corners, right, left, top, bottom, corners. I like to use the corners because when you drag on the corner of a window, you can resize the window both vertically and horizontally. Whereas if you drag just on the top or bottom, you can only make it taller or shorter. And likewise, if you drag just on the right or left, you can only make it wider or narrower. So those are reasons for dragging, by pressing and holding your mouse button down and dragging it around like so. If you're using a trackpad to do all of this, then you're going to be using a single finger to point. Now, this trackpad is not connected to the Mac, so you're not going to see the mouse moving around. But you'll use a single finger to point to something. You can, depending on how your trackpad is configured, you can either tap lightly or press until you hear the kukunk, kind of a click sound. A trackpad has a preference setting that allows you to specify whether or not you want to use that just light tap to be able to affect things, or to be able to perform a click, or if you have to actually do the deeper press. Okay? And then if you want to drag something, what you can do is press with your thumb and then use your pointer finger to drag around. And the same is true on trackpads on laptops, as is true on these external trackpads. There are many other gestures that you can use on trackpads. For example, you can pinch in and out to zoom. You can kind of, with two fingers, pinch in to zoom in, pinch out to zoom out. You can actually, in some programs, you can rotate an image, for example, or something that's rotatable just by twirling two fingers like this on the trackpad. And again, a number of other gestures. Later, before we're done today, I'll get you into Apple's System Preferences command, which is where you can set up all of those gestures or learn about them and or enable or disable them. All right, let's turn over to the second panel in your handout. The second panel begins the subject of exploring the desktop. For this, I'd like you to close the Intro to Mac window. The close button on a window in the Mac OS is in the upper left corner, and it's red rather than being in the upper right corner as is on the Windows operating system. One click on that close button should close that Intro to Mac window. The Intro to Mac folder is still selected, but that won't hurt anything. To deselect, you can simply click on something else or click in an empty space like on the background of the desktop. So this background of your desktop, this background is called your desktop, and the desktop features a number of things. There's the menu bar up at the top. The menu bar always begins with an Apple menu, and then it contains the commands, the menus and commands that belong to the active application. Here's one of those major differences between Mac and Windows. The menu bar doesn't live in the window, it always lives at the top of the screen. So as we start later on using applications, each application that you get into, its menu of choices will appear up here at the top rather than in its own window. Whereas on the Windows operating system, each window has its own menu bar. And so when you switch into a window, you see that window's menu bar. Well, on the Mac, when you switch into a window, the choices on the menu bar change. Whereas on Windows, there might be multiple menu bars visible on the screen at once if you have many different windows open. Again, the Apple menu is the only one that stays constant. It's there all the time, and it offers commands like the one we looked at earlier about this Mac. There's System Preferences, which I just mentioned. I'll take you into there. That is the Mac's control panel command. If you want to compare that to the Windows operating system, System Preferences is like control panels. Okay? A few other things, as well as your restart, shutdown, and log out commands. So this is where you go when you're ready to bring it to a halt, or at least a pause. Over on the right-hand side of the menu bar, is kind of the utility area. A little bit like the system tray. I know they don't call it that anymore, but the system tray in the lower right-hand corner of a Windows PC. Okay? And we saw earlier the Bluetooth controls were there, the Wi-Fi controls are there. Other applications like Microsoft's OneDrive might add its icon there, or Adobe's Creative Cloud might add its icon there if you have those extra pieces of software installed. Neither of those come with the Mac for free, obviously. Your sound control speaker volume is here, date and time, and a couple of other things as well. Then on the desktop itself, you might see, I say might very carefully, and I'll show you why in a moment, you might see an icon that represents the internal hard drive or hard drives. If you've partitioned one hard drive, it would show up as two different icons. In fact, you see the two hard drives on your own desktops. You don't see it on mine, but you do see two hard drives on yours, right? One of them is probably Macintosh HD, and the other one might be Boot Camp or Untitled. That's the Windows partition of the internal hard drive that I talked about that allows us to switch boot these computers into Windows as needed. On my screen, just ignore this file server link file. It's there for, well, reasons that we don't need to get into. And then, of course, any folders. If you inserted a memory stick into into a USB port on the back of the computer or the side, then you would see its icon mount on the desktop. External hard drives, optical drives like CDs and DVDs would appear as icons on the desktop as well. Shared network volumes, if you connect to a file server, its icon would appear on the desktop as well over here on the right-hand side as just another drive, another volume. Okay? And I showed you earlier how you can eject or disconnect from a drive by dragging it to the trash can or right-clicking it and choosing eject. Now don't try that with the Macintosh hard drive because it's not a removable or disconnectable storage device. Please don't try that with the Macintosh hard drive.
What does it do?
I have no idea, and you should not try it. Please, I beg you. Oh boy, I'm in trouble now. All right.
I learn things by clicking on it.
You learn things, yeah, well, okay, so yeah, some things you don't want to learn, or you don't want to learn the hard way. The last feature on the desktop that I want to draw your attention to is the dock down at the bottom of the screen. The dock, D-O-C-K, not doctor, but D-O-C-K like at a harbor, serves multiple purposes. First of all, it's a launcher for your favorite programs. You can pin, if you will. Mac doesn't use the word pin, but that's the equivalent on the Windows side. You can put icons for your favorite programs down there on the dock, and I'll show you how to do that later. Likewise, you can remove ones that you don't want on the dock, and I'll show you how to do that as well. All the programs that you have as favorites, they appear over in the left-ish portion of the dock. And any programs that are currently running will have a small dot beneath them. Any programs that are currently running, that are actually loaded into memory, will have a small dot beneath them. So at a glance, you can tell, hey, what programs are running right now? I made the joke earlier about the user who calls and says, my Mac is really slow and crashy, why? And they've got 47 programs running, right? You would see literally 47 icons on the dock with dots beneath them. That's because they haven't learned how to quit out of an application, which doesn't work the same as it does on Windows. Another one of those major differences. I'll show you that momentarily. And then you've got kind of a middle-ish section. It's actually more towards the right hand, but this portion of the dock right here is the recently used programs area. So usually the 3 or so programs that you used most recently will appear there. And then lastly, on the rightmost portion of the dock is where you can pin folders and files, and that's where the trash icon lives also. It's always the rightmost icon on the dock. But if you had a folder that you wanted to frequently get into, you could put a shortcut or an alias to it down there in the rightmost portion of the dock, and then it would be easy to get into. While we're talking about it, let's go ahead and see how that works now, okay? Let's say we wanted to put a shortcut for that Intro to Mac folder on the dock because we plan on getting into that Intro to Mac folder all the time. We'd like easy, quick access to it. Here's how you do it. You simply drag the Intro to Mac folder, like so, into that rightmost third of the dock. Now, be careful that you go between icons. Don't go on the trash can. You can guess what that would do. Likewise, don't go on to any one of those other folders, and I believe I've got 2 folders down there already. The Applications folder and the Downloads folder, which are probably 2 of the most commonly accessed folders of all. But if I get right into the empty space in between, for example, to the right of Downloads and to the left of the trash can, I can drop it, and it's just put what's called an alias, you can think of it as a shortcut, to that Intro to Mac folder there on the dock, so that from now on, it's going to be so easy to open up that folder and look at its contents. How did that go for you guys? Good? No problem? Okay. Let's say that you wanted to remove it. We'll put it back, don't worry. But let's say you wanted to remove it. All you do is go down there, press and hold, and drag it straight up like so until you see the word remove, and then let go. And you should get a little kind of a vapor cloud sound played as well. All right, let's put the Intro to Mac folder back on the dock. Drag the Intro to Mac folder, the real one, into an empty space in the rightmost portion of the dock and drop it where you want it to go. It's that easy. You could do the same with applications. Okay? Now, I've already got the applications folder pinned to the dock because I just find it so useful to be able to launch an application just by clicking that applications folder. Do that with me. Click the Applications folder. It will open up. We have a lot of applications that we teach, and so we have a lot of software on these computers. It'll open up into this big window that is scrollable. You can scroll through it like so. By the way, we didn't talk about the scroll wheel on your mouse, but you've got a scroll wheel on that mouse, either a round ball or on one of these magic mice, like this guy here. There's no scroll wheel, but you literally just swipe with your fingertip. The Magic Mouse is kind of a hybrid between a mouse and a trackpad. It's a glassy surface that you can use to do trackpad-like actions with the tip of your finger and mouse-like actions by clicking and dragging.
I noticed it does like the opposite of Windows. So in Windows, when you want to scroll down, at least on this mouse,
Yes.
it does the opposite.
Correct. Apple, it's inverted. The scrolling direction is inverted. Now, there is a system preference that would allow you to change that. But the logic that Apple is using there is they're saying, they call it like natural direction. Like, hey, I want that stuff to go up, so push it up, push it up, push it up. You are moving down, but the contents are moving up. Which is, you're right, exactly opposite to the Windows approach to scrolling. All right. Now, let's say that we wanted to get into the Notes app because you want to take some notes here in class. Okay? Find the Notes app. I think you all will have that in the Applications folder because it's a free application that comes with every Mac. And click on it once. And the Notes app should launch. You might get a Welcome to Notes message because we don't use the Notes app typically in class. And you'll just click the Continue button. Okay. Did the Notes app appear for everybody? Okay, wonderful. Now let's take a look at a couple of things that just happened. Glance at the dock. Remember in this kind of middle-ish section of the dock, not the main left section where all of your favorite applications appear, but in this middle-ish section, Notes has appeared and one of the other ones that was there has disappeared. Again, this is your recently used applications area. So since Notes is a very recently used application, it appears down there. Okay. Also, a black dot appears beneath it to tell you, I am running right now. The Notes application is open, taking up space in memory, to be more technically accurate. Right? So that black dot lets you know, oh, that program is running. If I'm done with it, I should quit out of it, so that it frees up that space in memory for other programs to run. And while some programs, particularly the Apple-provided programs, they will quit themselves if you simply close their last window, Most well-mannered Mac applications will not quit simply because you've closed their last window. Okay? They will stay open until you quit them. And that's another one of those massive differences between Mac and Windows operating system. Let me give you an example. Find on the dock the icon that looks like a blue compass. Safari is a web browser. It's Apple's web browser, a competitor to Google Chrome, to Microsoft Edge, to Internet Explorer, to Firefox, right? Let's launch Safari. Now, I've got Safari pinned to the dock because it's a favorite of ours. We use it all the time. Click once on the Safari icon to launch the Safari web browser. And Safari opens up and tries to take you to our website, or you can go to any website that you want, right? Click in the address bar. Let's say we want to go to Apple's website. Type apple.com and hit enter. So Safari is up and running. A black dot appears beneath its icon on the dock to remind you, hey, I'm open, I'm active, I'm open. It doesn't have to be active, it doesn't have to be the frontmost application, but I'm open and I'm taking up space in memory. Notice also the menu bar. The menu bar at the top of the screen has the Safari menus on it, doesn't it? We've got commands like the Safari menu, the File menu, Edit, View, History, Bookmarks, Develop, and so forth. Okay? Now, let's say we switch back over to the Notes application. And there are several different ways to switch. Of course, if you can see some of the Notes window peeking out from behind the Safari window, just click on it to switch over into the Notes application. If you can't, then just click on the Notes icon on the dock as an alternative way to switch between these two applications. And the Notes application should come to the front. Now look at the menu bar. You have Apple, like always, but now instead of Safari, you have Notes, File, Edit, Format, View, Window, and Help. None of the same commands that we had when Safari was the active application. That is one of those massive differences between the Mac OS and the Windows OS. Is that the menus do not live in the window, at the top of the window, like they do in the Windows operating system. The menus for a particular application or program always live up in the menu bar, and the menu bar simply switches as you switch between applications. Switch back into Safari by clicking something of the Safari window or clicking the Safari icon, and immediately the menu bar changes to give you the Safari menu commands. Does that make sense? Since you guys are fairly advanced, there's also a keyboard shortcut that you can use to switch between applications, and it's very similar to the Alt-Tab keyboard shortcut that you probably all use thousands of times a day. It's Command-Tab, and it works it works almost exactly the same way, almost. Here, so you'll hold down the Command key on your keyboard. That's the one with the clover leaf on it, okay? And while the Command key is held, I typically use my left thumb for that, then just tap the Tab key, but keep the Command key held. Right? You keep the Command key held. In the middle of your screen then appears a palette of the icons representing each open application, each program that's currently running right now. The reason I said it's slightly different than the Windows operating system is because the Windows operating system would actually show you an icon here for every window that's open, not just for every application that's open. And there's a difference. If you had 7 Word documents open, you'd only see one Word icon here. But in the Windows OS, you'd see 7 thumbnail icons, one for each of the Word document windows that was open. And as you then continue to hit the Tab key again and again, you can cycle through those until you find the one that you want to switch to. And as soon as you found, let's say in this case, the Notes icon, release the Command key, and Notes becomes the active application. If you do have multiple windows open within a current application, then you can use Command tilde. The tilde character is that squiggly character up above the Tab key. So a very similar keyboard shortcut to Command Tab. Command tilde allows you to cycle between the windows that are open within the current application, as opposed to the switching between the applications in general. We're not in that situation right now, but we could easily get there. Let's say we go into Safari. I'll use Command Tab to switch over into Safari. And then just click the File menu and choose New Window a couple of times. Right? Pop open a few new windows in Safari. So now I've got 4 browser window opens in Safari, and we can use Command tilde to switch between them. Tell me if that's working okay. Good? Okay, wonderful. And now here's where things get a little bit funky. Okay? Let's say that you don't need those browser windows open anymore. So you start closing the browser windows, closing the Safari windows. Click the red X in the top left-hand corner for one of your browser windows, and then for another one, and then for another one, and even for the last one. Right? I had 4 of them open. Even when I close the last Safari browser window, Safari is still running. We can tell 2 ways. One, since I haven't clicked anywhere else, I haven't made some other application the active application, the menu bar is still occupied with Safari menu commands. So Safari is still running, and I could still come in here and say, I'd like to pop open a new browser window because I need to do some more searching. Likewise, you still see the black dot below the Safari icon on the dock, which is evidence that that program is in memory, still running. Okay? Switch into the Notes application. That window's still open, right? Switch onto the Notes, or click into the Notes window to make that window the active application. And did Safari quit? No, Safari still has the black dot beneath it. We don't see any evidence physically on the screen other than that black dot that tells us the Safari is still running. But it is. It's still taking up space in memory. Now with the Notes application, as with some of the other Apple-provided applications, some of the more simple applications, when you close the last, or in this case the only Notes window, the Notes application actually quits itself. Go ahead, click the red X for the Notes window, and the Notes application will quit itself. That is fairly new behavior. I say new, meaning it's been like that for probably the last 10 years. But for the 20 or so years prior to that I've been using a Mac, it didn't do that. There were no applications that self-quit just because you closed their last window. And like I said, most applications don't behave that same way. So how do you quit an application, for Pete's sake? Well, first of all, let me just have you glance down at the Notes icon and notice that there is no more black dot on it, right? No more black dot beneath the Notes icon on the dock. Okay, so proof that it's really no longer in memory. So how do you quit an application? Well, you have to be in the application to quit it. Let's switch back to Safari by clicking on the Safari icon on the dock, or using Command Tab. Right? If you use Command Tab, you can still switch to an application even if it doesn't have any windows open. Did you see that? You have to be pretty keen of sight to be able to notice the subtle difference that happens when you switch into an application that doesn't have any windows open. Here I am in Finder. Finder is my active application, right? I noticed that. I know that because of the menu bar giving me the Finder menus. Now I'm going to use Command Tab on the keyboard to switch into Safari. The only thing that changed was the contents of the menu bar. And honestly, folks, most people don't notice that subtle change, and that's why they get themselves into trouble. That's why they don't realize that they've got 47 different programs running at the same time. So once the Safari menu, in this case, is once the menu bar has the Safari menus on it, now you can quit that program. Let's do this together. Click the Safari menu, or the application menu, you might call it, because it always takes on the name of the application. And the quit command is always the last command at the bottom of that application menu. And it'll always say quit and then the name of the application. So quit Safari. Likewise, it'll always have the same keyboard shortcut, Command Q, which is kind of like the exit command in a Windows application. It's identical to the exit command in a Windows application. When you quit an application, it will close all of that application's windows if they were open. And then likewise, it will shut down the application. It'll quit the application and take it out of memory as well. Okay, how did that go? And are there any questions? I think with your level of experiences, you understand why I made such a big deal of that, right? Can you imagine how a newer user, somebody with a little bit less powers of observation might easily miss that subtle little fact that, oh, there's a small black dot beneath an application icon. That should tell me that it's open. Or the menu bar has, such and such an application menu on it rather than Finder. And that means that I'm in that application, but there are no windows to really make it obvious. Does it go without saying that the Finder application cannot be quit out of? The Finder application is the desktop. It's what presents or creates this whole structure that we see. That's the bedrock, the foundation on which everything else gets built, right? So there is no quit command for Finder like there is for every other application. If you want to, quote unquote, quit the Finder, well, you're not really looking to quit the Finder, you're looking to shut down your computer, is really what you're trying to do then. Because you can't use a Mac without the Finder running. Exactly like you can't use a Windows PC without Windows Explorer or File Explorer. I forget what the proper name for it is. But that program that just simply presents the desktop and all of its accoutrements. Getting back to the dock icons, on the far right-hand side, we had added our Intro to Mac folder to the dock, so that now anytime you want to look inside that Intro to Mac folder, as an alternative to double-clicking it on the desktop, you could simply click it once on the dock. And depending on how many items are in it, it might open up in this kind of fancy little fan type of display, or the more grid or tabular kind of display like we saw with the Applications folder. A folder with only a handful of items in it will usually appear in this kind of fan type of display. And so if we wanted to get into one of these documents, one of these files, we could simply click it. Let's say we wanted to get into the handle.txt file. Click once on handle.txt. It's a plain text file. Now, on the Windows side of things, you would expect the program called Notepad to open up when you open up a plain text file. On the Mac, the equivalent of Notepad is called TextEdit. It's a free, very, very simple text editor program that comes with every Mac, for the same reason that Notepad comes with every Windows machine, so that Apple and Microsoft and everybody knows that every computer user has the means of opening a plain text file. And this is it on the Mac, TextEdit. Now, could they open it up into Microsoft Word? Sure, if they wanted to, but not everybody has bought Microsoft Word. But they all have TextEdit. So you can be assured that everybody has the means to open up a simple plain text document. Make sense? Okay. Now, on the icons on the dock, I'm going to go a little more advanced than what we usually do. If you want to see some options for an item that's on the dock, you can right-click on that dock icon. Let's do a right-click on your Intro to Mac folder that's pinned to the dock there, and you'll see a menu of choices. Right? And one of the things that we see there is view content as a fan or a grid or a list. Like I mentioned, depending on how many items are in that folder, it might display in one or two or three different ways. Or the automatic choice lets the Mac make its choice based on the number of content. Choose grid instead. Choose the grid command for view content as, and now click on the Intro to Mac folder icon, and you get that grid type of display. Okay, nice. Click again on the icon to make the grid disappear. Right-click on the Intro to Mac icon on the dock, and choose List instead. And then click on it, and we see a list type of display. So the way that the item's contents appears on the dock can be customized in a few different ways. Kind of nice. Right-click again on your Intro to Mac icon on the dock, and let's go back to Automatic. Earlier, we learned how you could remove an item from the dock by just pressing and holding on it and dragging it straight up like you're ripping it up off the dock. But of course, another way to do that is to do the right click and then choose Options and then choose Remove from Dock, or notice the other command that's there, Show in Finder. Sometimes you might want to see where's the original to this alias. That's what these things are on the dock, by the way. They're called aliases, which are exactly like a shortcut on the Windows platform, right? If we choose Show in Finder, our Intro to Mac folder that's on the desktop should open up and let us see its contents. The same as if we had double-clicked on the Intro to Mac folder itself on the desktop. Now, what's kind of, I think, very clever about the Mac operating system is that aliases will track when their originals move. I don't think that happens on the Windows side very well. Maybe I'm wrong, but if we move this Intro to Mac folder into another folder, the alias that's on the dock will have noticed that change and will still be able to find it. So it's not just a hard-coded path to the original. It's a little bit more dynamic than that. And let's see how we might do that. Now, we don't want to be moving a folder around while one or more of its files are open, okay? That'd be like when I went off to college as a young man, my parents moved. I found them eventually, but you know, if your home moves while you're away, oh boy, that could be real trouble. And that's what would happen if we were to move a folder or move a file while that file was also open in memory, because it's really a copy of the file that's open in memory, right? So let's switch back into our handle document that's open in TextEdit. You can click on it to make it the active window, or the active application, I should say. Or you can use Command Tab to switch between Finder and TextEdit, like so. Again, pay no attention to my ScreenFlow icon. That's the recording software I'm using just to make a recording of this session. And now, what are you going to do to close the TextEdit application? To fully close it up and be done with it, get it out of memory, what should we choose? We should quit it. Yes, we should quit it. Now, I happen to know that the TextEdit program, also provided for free by Apple, will quit itself if you close its last window. But until you know that by memory, it's safer just to say, you know what, I'm just going to quit. I'm going to do it right, I'm going to do it fully, and not leave it to chance whether this program is one of those few self-quitting programs or not. Okay? So let's quit TextEdit. There we go. And now we might feel free to move this folder where that handle document lives into some other location. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about all of this stuff over here in a little bit. But for now, to make it really easy, let's just open up a second Finder window. Let's open up a second Finder window so that we have two windows open and we can drag files and folders in between them. Okay? You can do that in a couple different ways. One, of course, would just be to open up your Macintosh hard drive by double-clicking on the Macintosh HD icon up there in the top right-hand corner. Let's do that. Double-click on the Macintosh HD. It opens up into a second window. You can then move that window to wherever you want on your desktop by dragging it by its title bar. And in that Macintosh HD window, of course, then you can navigate to whatever folder you would like. And for that, the navigation pane is a big help. This navigation pane, it's actually called the sidebar on the Mac. It's called the navigation pane on the Windows platform, but it's called the sidebar on the Mac. It lists for you some of your favorite places that you might want to go. And you might even be able to scroll through it and see some other locations, like maybe our file server. No, don't try to go there. You'd need a login. Or your iCloud drive, and so forth. Let's say we want to move our Intro to Mac folder from the desktop where it currently sits into the Documents folder. Use the sidebar in the window on the right to switch into the Documents folder, or to navigate into the Documents folder. And now you can see all the stuff that's in the Documents folder on your computer. Now we're ready to move the Intro to Mac folder into Documents. Watch me for a second, and then I'll have you do it. I'm going to press and hold on the Intro to Mac folder. I generally recommend staying away from the name and only pointing to the icon, because if you do things a little bit wrong, you might end up it might end up thinking that you want to change the name if you work on the name. But if you stay on the folder or on the icon, it's safe. I'm going to press and hold and drag, like so, over into an empty space in that Documents folder, and then just drop. And the Intro to Mac folder moves over there. Okay, you do it. Again, make sure that you drop it into some empty space, not onto one of the existing folders, although that would work, but that's not what we're aiming to do. We're trying to put the folder into Documents, not into one of the other folders within Documents. Success? Okay, easy enough. So drag and drop between folders, right? Here's an advanced tip. If you had held the Option key down when you did that drag and drop, it would have copied the folder instead of moving it. Option drag means copy. If you look at the keyboard, you'll see that there's an Option key there next to the Command key. It's also labeled Alt for the folks who use their Macs to also work on PC applications, like we do with the switch boot kind of a thing. Actually, we put a PC keyboard down for comfort, but the Option and Alt keys are virtually interchangeable between Mac and Windows. The Command key, on the other hand, on the Mac, is not interchangeable with your Control key on your Windows, shortcuts and so forth. Like Control S for save on a Windows application, it's Command S on the Mac. There is a Control key on the Mac keyboard, but it's very seldom used. Very seldom used. I think it's really only there for the sake of, for the most part, compatibility with Windows applications for people who use Windows on their Macs. Okay. So Option drag makes a copy of something. If, on the other hand, you had dragged a folder to another drive, like to an external hard drive or to a USB memory stick, then it would have copied naturally, just as you would expect. If you move something from one drive to another drive, from one storage device to another storage device, it copies by nature. You don't have to do any special holding of any keys. Okay, good. Hey, let's close up both of those windows. Click the close buttons for each of the two Finder windows that you have open. And now let's see if that shortcut on the dock still is able to find where that folder is. Click once on your Intro to Mac folder that's pinned to the dock, and it should still be able to show its contents. All right. This time, let's just use the Open in Finder command that appears there. Click the Open in Finder icon, and it should open up that Intro to Mac folder, even though we'd moved it since the time we had pinned it to the dock. Pretty cool. So the alias that's there on the dock updated its path, updated its target automatically. Good? Okay. You don't seem all that impressed, but I'm impressed by that. I think that's pretty cool. I don't know. All right. Any questions on the various elements of the desktop, including the menu bar, the icons that appear on the right, or the basic functionality of the dock so far?
In the Finder app,
yeah.
There's the Hide Finder and Hide Others.
Yes. Ha! That little guy right there?
Yeah, what is that?
That's the Option key.
Gotcha, okay.
To me, it looks like a playground slide, right? Like the slide on a playground, but that represents the Option key.
Okay.
And then the cloverleaf, of course, is the Command key. The Shift key is represented by an up-pointing arrow. And then the Control key, let me see if I can find one, there we go, is represented by the caret or TP. So those are your 4 modifier keys that you might ever find in use for a keyboard shortcut. So make alias would be Control and Command, and then finally tap the letter A. Or show original would be, yikes, Control, Option, Command, A. Okay? And then again, the Shift key is the up arrow. Yeah, great question. Good observation on those keyboard shortcuts. We'll talk about that hide command coming up shortly, by the way. It's very useful. I find it incredibly useful. One other thing that I wanted to mention about the desktop icons, as you close up any windows that are currently still open on your desktop, just get back to a nice clean desktop. We have control over what icons appear on the desktop, just like on the Windows OS. You can choose, do you want to see your hard drive icons? Do you want to see removable storage devices appear on the desktop or not? You know, how clean or full do you want your desktop to be? And we do that using the Preferences command found under the Finder menu. Click on the Finder menu and choose Preferences. And then go into the General tab, if you will, or category of Finder Preferences. You see those 4 icons across the top. Click the General one, and you can see right at the beginning, show these items on the desktop. And so you have your choice. Do you want to see hard disks? Yes or no? And if you uncheck it, the hard disk icon will disappear immediately. Do you want to see external disks like thumb drives or external hard drives, right? Yes or no? Do you want to see opticals like CDs or DVDs? What about file servers that you've connected to, shared volumes? So you can show any or all of those. Now, for our sake, I'd like you to keep them on, but it's nice that you have that control. You can also control what folder will be opened when you open up a new Finder window. Now, I haven't taught you that command yet, but I will right now. Let's move that Finder Preferences command over a little bit just to avoid confusion. And let me show you how the File menu, as its first command, allows you to pop open a new Finder window. This is an alternate way of just getting another Finder window open, in addition to the way I had showed you earlier, which was by double-clicking on the Macintosh hard drive. Go ahead and choose from the File menu, choose New Finder Window, and it just opens up a window, a Finder window. To where? To what folder does it point to? Well, to whatever you've chosen from this preference command right here. And in this room, I've got it set to take us to our home folder, right? The home folder has your username, so I'm called Mac2, you all are called student. And that home folder is exactly like the user folder on a Windows PC. It's their personal folder in which sits their documents folder, their desktop folder, their movies, pictures, movie, music, pictures, sites, and so forth. All of their relevant subfolders live under that home folder. But someone can certainly come here and say, you know what, whenever I open up a new Finder window like that by hitting File, New Finder Window, or by clicking on the Finder icon on the dock, that's another shortcut to opening up a new Finder window, I want it to take me to, to maybe the root level of my Macintosh hard drive. Or I want it to take me right to my Documents folder, or whatever. Nice. Also, you can still see the sidebar of that window you just opened, right? If not, move the Finder Preferences window off to the side to where you can see the sidebar. That's this area right here. And in the sidebar category of Finder Preferences, we get to decide what choices, what destinations, if you will, are placed in that favorites area of the sidebar. And so you can just mark on or off any of those folders, and they're not all folders, but roughly, that you would like to appear in that sidebar. Okay? For example, if you turn on the Movies and Pictures checkboxes, those two folders will be added into the sidebar in the Favorites section. Likewise, if you turn them off, Movies and Pictures disappear from the Favorites area here in the sidebar. And the sidebar is constant. Every Finder window offers the same choices on its sidebar, in the same way that the navigation pane on a Windows machine does in every File Explorer window. All right. Go ahead. Yes, question?
I'm assuming those preferences are user-specific.
They are user-specific. Yes, good question. Thank you. Absolutely. All right, go ahead and close up that Finder Preferences window. That was not a program. It was just a command in the Finder, so it didn't launch a new program. It was just a window within the Finder program. And then while we were talking about that sidebar, let me just point out that you can also rearrange the choices in the sidebar. If you wanted, for example, the Downloads folder, go ahead and click once on Downloads there in the sidebar, and that takes you to that folder. It navigates you to that Downloads folder and shows you if there was anything in it. I don't think there is. I cleaned these machines up last night. But you could say, hey, I want the Downloads folder to be higher up in this list because my user gets into it more frequently than the others. Just drag it like this. Just drag it up or down to change its position. Real simple. Mac uses drag and drop so much of the time, you can almost assume that drag and drop is useful in so many different contexts. Okay, so we've talked about some of the elements of a window. The red close button, for example, in the top left-hand corner. But you might be wondering what the yellow and green buttons do. Of course, we'll take a look at those. We'll take a look at a few other important aspects of a Finder window. And you'll see that a Finder window shares a lot of common characteristics with any other window, an Excel window, a Photoshop window, a text edit window, a Safari window, and so forth. The yellow button is the minimize button, if you want to think of it in terms of Windows PC environment. Click that yellow button, and like a genie going back into its bottle, it will drop down and form a new icon on the far right portion of the dock. And to bring it back out of the bottle again, simply click on the icon that appeared on the dock. So again, that's this yellow minimize button here, kind of a clever way to just get a window out of my way so that I can see other windows that might be open as well. And then to bring it back, use click the same button that appeared on the dock, the bottle, if you will, and the genie comes springing out of the bottle. Nice. Now, in my humble opinion, I see, obviously lots of users all the time, and I see a lot of Mac users using that minimize button when I think they should be using a different command instead. I'm going to teach you that command, and maybe you can pass it on to your Mac using colleagues, because in my opinion, it does a better job of getting something out of my way if I'm trying to free up physical space on the screen because I've got 6 things going on at once, which is perfectly fine, by the way. Most Macs have more than enough RAM memory installed to be able to handle several big programs running at once, or a number of smaller programs running at once, right? You probably have your email program running all day, and or a separate calendar program if it's not integrated with your email, and likewise maybe your word processor and a number of other programs going. So let's get a program up and running. We'll use text edit again just because it's so quick to load. Find the text edit icon on the dock and click it once, and a new blank text edit window opens up. Okay? Again, clicking the text edit icon on the dock will simply open up the program, text edit, and start up a new blank document as well. We could minimize that text edit window if it was in our way, right? But one of you mentioned the hide command, and I love this command and use it all the time. Because some programs, first of all, you might have more than one window open. And some programs also have extra windows or palettes or panels that aren't part of the main window, but that clutter up the screen anyway. And so this hide command right here, there's always a hide command in every Mac application. Apple has stipulated to every software company, if you want to make software for the Mac platform, you have to have certain things. Your software has to comply with certain things. First of all, the preferences command always has to be under the application menu. So nobody has to wander around looking, where's the bloody preferences command in this software application like we do, well, on the Windows platform, right? Here on the Mac, it's always going to be under the application menu. Same with the quit command. It's always the last command under the application menu. And likewise, the hide command, always under the application menu. So if we say hide text edit, everything about the text edit application goes invisible. If there had been 17 text edit windows open, they all would have been made invisible. They all would have been hidden in that one command, as opposed to the minimize button, the yellow one, which only gets one of the windows out of the way. And it causes another icon to appear on the dock. You know what your dock looks like when you add 17 more icons to it? Well, the icons get really small. They become a little bit unwieldy. So I like that hide command. Now text edit is still running, it's still in memory, and can be switched into using any of the techniques that we've learned already, like Command Tab on the keyboard, or clicking the text edit icon on the dock. Go ahead and bring it back into view by just clicking the text edit icon on the dock, or using Command Tab to switch to it, and all of those 17 windows, if we're pretending, would return to visibility again. I love that. And I also love the inverse of it. That is, hey, I'm working in text edit and all this other stuff behind it is just bothering me. It's distracting. So let's hide others. Hide others means all those other programs that are not the active application, make them all invisible. And the Finder window that was open in the background becomes invisible. Is it still open? It is. Yeah, and if you switch to the Finder, it will reappear. But it's hidden, made invisible for the time being. To switch to Finder, just click on the Finder icon on the dock, or click on the desktop, to be honest, because the desktop, that picture of Catalina, is part of Finder. The background picture belongs to Finder. So when you click on the background picture, you are switching to the Finder application. Does that seem reasonable? Okay, now the Finder window may not come to the front until you click on the actual Finder window, because there is a distinction between the Finder program and one of its windows. But you saw when you clicked on the desktop picture, the background of your desktop, that you did indeed switch to the Finder application. The menu bar changed to Finder. Cool. All right, let's switch back into the text edit window. And the green button here, you're gonna love this, I hope. The green button is the full screen view button. Now, is there an equivalent on the Windows side? You know, I don't even make the equivalent between this and maximizing a window on the Windows side, because it's going to feel different. Here's the deal. On the Mac, you have this thing called spaces. It's as though the operating system can create a virtual additional display, a secondary monitor, if you will, but with only one screen. And you can open an application into this space or open an application into that space, and you can have as many of these as you want. And if you're using a laptop or if you have a trackpad, you literally switch between spaces with like a 3-finger side-to-side swipe. It's boom, and I'm into my next monitor full of applications. Boom, into the next one or back. It's remarkable. It's really an elegant way to extend the desktop space. Okay? When you go into full screen view on an application by clicking that green button, it creates a space, and it puts that application into its own space. And then if you do it again for another application, it creates a space for that application, and you can then switch back and forth between them. So let's get a couple of applications running, because this is only interesting when there are several programs running at once. Before you put any of them into full screen view, let's get, how about Safari? Let's get Safari running again. Clicking the blue compass icon on the dock to launch Safari. Again, we would be using more traditional programs like Word, Excel, PowerPoint if they just didn't take so blasted long to launch. These programs launch much more quickly. And now, click the green button in the Safari window to put that Safari window into full screen view. Full screen view means it dominates, it dominates the entire screen. So the dock is no longer visible. The menu bar even is no longer visible. It really lets you focus exclusively on the content of that window. If you need to use the menu bar, then just ram your mouse up to the top of the screen, like this, bam. Right? Go hard like you mean it, run into the top, and then the menu bar and the title bar of that window will appear, which, by the way, is how you would get that window out of full screen view. So by clicking the green button again. But don't do that. Rather, let's switch back over into the text edit application. Okay? The text edit application. Now, the way you're going to switch spaces, here's a keyboard shortcut for you. It's not written in the handout because I'm taking you guys way beyond what we normally get into. You're going to use the control key for this one, which is a very odd thing on the Mac. You don't use the control key for very many keyboard shortcuts. But you're going to hold down the control key, not the command key, and then just tap the left arrow key on your keyboard. Control left arrow, because you're trying to go back to the original space, space number 1, let's call it, which is where your text edit window was. So control left arrow should take you from that full screen view of Safari back into the original space. Let me know if that's working okay or not. Okay? Wonderful. With your text edit window open, click its green button to go into full screen view for it as well, and it goes into full screen view. And just, to make it interesting, you might want to type some gobbledygook text, just so there's nothing, so it's not an entirely blank window, so we know what we have. And now you can use control. So now this one was moved over into space, let's call it space number 2. So in a sense, we've got space 0, which was kind of the not full screen view Windows, Finder. And space 1, which was Safari, and now space 2 has been added, which is text edit. So we could use control left arrow to jump into Safari, control left arrow again to go back to Finder. And again, if you've got a trackpad, switching between these things is just like a 3-finger swipe left or right. It becomes a very elegant way to work. Some people absolutely prefer full screen view. Personally, I don't, but again, that's personal preference. How do we get the menu bar to reappear?
Eject.
Just ram your mouse up into the top of the screen. Right. Move your mouse up to the top, go hard like you mean it, and the menu bar will appear, and the title bar, or at least enough of it, will appear so that you could, if you wanted to, take this window out of full screen view. Let's do that. Go ahead and exit full screen view for the text edit window, and it'll return back to space number 0, I guess I'm calling it. Now Safari is still open in space number 1, if I recall, so we would use what keyboard shortcut to jump over to Safari? Control right arrow, exactly, well done. Control right arrow gets us back over into Safari, and if we wanted to take it out of full screen view, just point to the top of the screen until the title bar appears, and click the green button as well to come out of full screen view there. Okay, nice. Any questions on manipulating in full screen view? You can see how somebody who stumbles into that is going to kind of freak out, like, what did I just do? Right? How do I get out of this? No, there's no intuition that's going to tell them to hit Control left arrow on their keyboard, nor even to mash your mouse up against the top of the screen to get the title bar of the window to appear. So it might take a little bit of training to acquaint them with that wonderful feature. Go ahead and let's quit out of Safari. Remember, the quit command is always under the application menu. Feel free to use the keyboard shortcut, Command Q. And likewise, quit out of text edit. If you had typed anything, like every well-behaved program, it will ask you if you want to save what you've created, what you've typed. And in this case, we'll just say no, delete. It's interesting that it's delete rather than don't save. Because with certain of the Apple programs, if we had just quit, it would actually have saved it using a generic untitled name. And when we launch text edit again, it would have come back, which is curious, different. But I think it's starting to be kind of the new way of things. Think of, I don't know, all the cloud-based storage services that are saving constantly as you go. OneDrive, Google Drive. Anyway, okay. We've still got a Finder window open, do we not? That's aiming right now at the Downloads folder. I say it that way intentionally, right? A window can be looking at any particular folder that you want, and you can easily use the favorite areas on the sidebar, or the other areas in the sidebar for that matter, to navigate to desktop, to documents, to your iCloud drive, to the root level of your hard drive, and so forth. You can easily use that sidebar to jump around between areas. So a window can point you to or show you the contents of just about any folder, any destination you like. Now, there's some interesting things about a Finder window. As I go back to my, let's go to our Documents folder, if you would. Navigate to the Documents folder, because I know we each have a folder inside there called Intro to Mac. And the first thing I want to show you about a Finder window is these 4 different ways of viewing its contents. The ways of viewing the contents of a window. You can view the contents of a window in an icon type of display by clicking this Show Items as Icons button, and they'll appear as icons. This is not unusual. Windows allows you to do the same kind of thing with actually a little bit more flexibility than what we have here. Or you can view as a list, right? Switch into the list view like this. And those triangular spinners to the left of each folder would do exactly what you think they would do. They would expand that folder to show you its contents, which technically makes it possible to see the contents of more than one folder at a time. That's not possible in other views. This list view, this list way of displaying the contents of a Finder window, is the only way that you'd be able to see the contents of multiple folders at once. The triangular spinners are the equivalent of the little plus signs that appear next to the folders in a Windows environment. The column view is my favorite by far. I love this column view. The third view shows you the contents of the current folder, Documents, in a column type of browser, and as you click on a folder like Intro to Mac, it'll show you its contents in the next panel to the right. And if you were to click on just one time, now don't double click, we're just trying to to select not open. If you were to click on a file like one of the images, maybe of Chopin or of Mozart, then a third panel or a column would appear and show you the preview of that file. Even if it was a text file, it would show you a preview of the contents. It can even dig into PDFs and Microsoft Word documents and Excel and show you a pretty good thumbnail preview of the file. Now, the reason I like this column browser so well is because it allows you to scroll left and right and kind of see the pathway, almost like breadcrumbs, right? See the pathway that you took to get here. And you can easily, obviously, drop back to say, well, I took a wrong turn here at Intro to Mac. I meant to click on my Adobe folder or what have you. The fourth view, I don't find it quite as useful. It's a gallery view that puts the contents of the folder in a little scrollable, horizontal scrollable gallery down here at the bottom and lets you click on it to see its contents. Now, the only interesting folder in here, I think, is our Intro to Mac folder. So let's open up the Intro to Mac folder, double-clicking on it, and now in Gallery View, you can see, oh, each individual file appears as an item in the gallery, and you see a preview of it when you click on it. Did I do that too fast, or we're good? Okay. Again, this might be great if it's a folder full of images or video clips, and you're wanting to see it almost like in a photo gallery. And you can use the right and left arrow keys on your keyboard to go to the next or the previous item in the gallery down there at the bottom of the window. Right? Just left or right by themselves, not control left or control right, which we learned earlier moves between spaces. Let's switch back to the column view, if you don't mind. There we go. Of course, the wider you make the window, the more columns you can see at once, if necessary, or the larger the preview pane appears. Also, you can resize the columns themselves by pointing to the column border, just like you would in, let's say, Microsoft Excel to change the widths of columns. Right? You can squeeze or widen the width of any one column, like so. Or, let's see if I can find the sweet spot there. Come on. Oh, well, okay, the mouse pointer wasn't changing. That's a bit of a bug, but don't tell Apple I said that. But it should allow you to do that. And if you hold down the Option key while you resize a column, it will resize all columns uniformly. Holding down the Option key while you resize one column will resize all the columns together. Nice. At the top of the Finder windows, there's a toolbar. I get the impression that Apple, the Apple engineers, they like bars. That could sound bad. They like bars. That is, this is called the toolbar up here. This is called the sidebar over here on the left. This is called the path bar. And this is called the, oh, what's it called? That's called the status bar down here at the very bottom. So there's 4 bars, and that's not even all of them. Using the View menu, you can decide which of those bars you want to be showing in Finder. And it's not window specific, but it is user specific, back to the question from earlier. So if we say hide the sidebar from the View menu, go ahead, choose that command with me. Go to the View menu, choose hide sidebar. The sidebar goes away. Right? If a user has done that and they're wondering, yikes, how do I bring that back? Go to the View menu, choose show sidebar. Likewise, go with me to the View menu and choose Hide Toolbar, and the toolbar at the top goes away. To bring it back, go back to the View menu, Show Toolbar. The toolbar at the top gives you your wonderful, beloved back and forward buttons. So just like in Windows, you can use back and forward to navigate back through the path that you've followed, even if you've kind of followed a random path. Using the sidebar, you know, maybe you've gone from downloads to applications to documents, and you can work your way backwards, boom, 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 with the back button. and likewise the forward button to retrace your steps that you had just backed up. Then we've got our view icons. We talked about those. Grouping is a nice little tool. If you want to organize the items in a folder or in a list by some kind of grouping, click the Group menu, and let's say we want to group these things by kind. Group by kind. And you'll see all the documents grouped together, the images grouped together, the PDFs, music files, spreadsheets. Nice. Making it potentially easier to find some file in a list or in a folder based on what kind of thing it is. If you don't want grouping, just go back to the Group menu there and choose None. One of the grouping options that I like to use is date last opened or date added or date modified, right? If I'm thinking, doggone it, I can't find this thing, but I know I worked with it yesterday. You could say, group these things by date modified, and anything that was modified, today will be under a today subheading, and then yesterday likewise, and last week, and so forth. All these files are old, so they're listed not by day or week, but by year. Is that working? That group command? Okay, very helpful. Let's go back and turn off grouping by setting the grouping choice to None. And then likewise, the path bar and status bar can be shown or hidden. I like the path bar because, again, it tells you kind of in breadcrumb style where you are and how you got there, or where this folder, the current folder, sits in the overall storage scheme of things. For example, if you're on your Intro to Mac folder, you can see Intro to Mac at the end of the path, there in the path bar. That folder lives inside the Documents folder, which lives inside your User folder, or Home folder as the Mac calls it. And that folder lives inside a folder called Users, which lives, of course, ultimately on the Macintosh hard drive. You can double-click on any folder in that path bar to jump to that folder. Kind of like, teleporting yourself back up the pathway to that folder. Go ahead and double-click on the Users folder in the path bar, and it takes you right to the Users folder. We talked earlier about how the Mac operating system, like the Windows operating system, is a multi-user compatible environment. So if more than one person has to share the same Mac, they should each just create their own accounts, and that will create a new folder, a new home folder for each one of those user accounts. There are two other folders that are typically created as well. One called Shared, that's commonly available to everyone. I think on Windows that's called Public Documents or something like that. Am I right? Okay. And then there's another called Guest, because there is the ability to enable anonymous or no account access to a Mac. By default, it's disabled. Guest access to a Mac is disabled. But if you enable guest access, then that guest folder becomes that user's home folder. Simple enough, right? Okay, fantastic. And we can drill in to get back into our Intro to Mac folder. Let's do it kind of the long way. Click once on your home folder, now that you're in the users folder, which is on the Macintosh HD, which lights up on the sidebar, by the way. Right? Macintosh HD is the top of the pyramid, then users, then click your home folder, then click your desktop folder. Oh, I'm sorry. We moved that folder. It was in the desktop earlier, but now we've moved it to Documents. Click on the Documents folder, and then finally click on the Intro to Mac folder. And now that really shows off better the beauty of the column view style, right? I just love that column way of navigating through folders, because you can easily see where you are, and you can scroll back and forth left and right to go backwards along the path. Nice. The status bar likewise shows you how many items are in the current folder and how much hard drive space you've still got available on your hard drive. This number down here is not the sum total of all the files in the current folder or anything like that. It's just grand total, how much free space do you have on your hard drive. If you don't care to see the path bar and status bar, those also can be hidden from the view menu like you would expect. From the view menu, you could say hide path bar, and likewise hide status bar, and that would turn off those two elements down there of the Finder windows. Any questions on any of those characteristics of a Finder window? As part of the toolbar at the top, there's a search box, right? We'll get into searching for files a little bit later, but just pointing that out, that you could easily initiate a search of the current folder by just typing a word or phrase into that search bar in the toolbar at the top. Now, let's say that we needed a new folder inside our Intro to Mac folder. To make a new folder, of course, you Windows guys would probably say, let's do a right click in the empty space of that Intro to Mac folder and the new folder command should be available. And you'd be spot on. Exactly right. If you are not a right clicker by trade or by heart, of course you can also make a new folder from the traditional file menu with this second command here. And whatever folder is currently selected or active is the folder in which this new folder will be placed. Go ahead, let's make a new folder one way or the other. And the new folder automatically has its name highlighted so that it's ready to be replaced. You don't have to click anywhere or drag across any text. It's already highlighted. And let's just type something like my project or my project X. Press the return key when you're done typing, just to kind of lock it in. And let's say that the African wildlife pages is part of the Project X. So we want to move African wildlife pages into the My Project X folder. You can just drag the pages icon, africanwildlife.pages, onto the My Project X folder and drop it there to move it into that subfolder. Go ahead and do that. Let's say that all these other files, they all have to do with classical music, and so let's make a folder for them as well. But we don't want the new folder to go inside My Project X. Rather, we want it to go into Intro to Mac. So make it so that the Intro to Mac folder is selected by either clicking in an empty space here in this column or clicking on the Intro to Mac folder icon once, and then make a new folder there as well. Again, File, New Folder, or right-click and New Folder, or Command-Shift-N. And let's make a new folder called Classical Music. Hit the return key when you're done typing the name. And now let's see if we can get all 7 of those files selected and so we can move them in one batch. Okay? This will be a little bit tricky, and that's good. It'll give you a good hint on how we select multiple items in a list. There are a couple different ways. Okay, check this out. You could start with your mouse in an empty space like here and press and hold and drag to highlight the 3 files that are together that you want. Okay? Again, you had to start away from the name or icon of the file. You have to start in an empty space. That assumes that there is some empty space, that your column isn't so narrow. But if you start about here and press and hold and drag, you should be able to drag vertically to select multiple files in a list. Alternately, go ahead and click in an empty space. You could shift click, as I'm certain familiar with on the Windows platform. That is, do a regular click on the Beethoven flyer and then a shift click on Chopin.jpg to select that range of files. Okay, does that make sense? Of course, shift click works to select a group or a range of adjacent files. If you wanted to select non-adjacent files, you would use command click. So we'll use command click to add into the selection our classical music Excel workbook, and then command click on composer biographies, and likewise on Handel and Mozart. Command clicking on each one of those. Okay, how's that going? Good, no trouble there. All right, fantastic. Now here's an even faster way, because command clicking not only allows you to add items to a selection, but it also allows you to remove items from a selection. Let's try this. Click in an empty space to deselect. And then let's start at the top one and just in an empty space and just drag down all the way through the last one. We know that we're accidentally including the classical music folder, which we don't want, but as it turns out, this is going to be the fastest way to get the job done. We select all 8 of those items, By the way, notice that the status bar does tell you how many items are selected out of the total number of items in the current folder. Kind of cool. And now you can just hold down the Command key on your keyboard and click once on the classical music folder to deselect it, getting the result that we'd been hoping for all along. Point to any one of those blue selected items and drag the whole gang of them into or onto the classical music folder. It's where your mouse pointer is, by the way, that matters. So the tip of your mouse pointer has to be on that folder or its name for it to understand that you're trying to nest these files into that folder. And you probably get a donk, like the, a wadded up piece of paper hitting the bottom of a basket sound. Did that go well? Okay, nice. So a lot of the same techniques that work on the Windows side work here on the Mac side in terms of shift clicking to select a range of files and command clicking, whereas it's control on the Windows side, but command clicking here to add in non-adjacent items into the selection. Very nice. Now we decide that the folder that we called My Project X should just be called Project X. To rename a folder, here's what you're going to do. And I'm going to ask you to set aside your Windows knowledge for this, because it'll actually teach you a shortcut that you can use on Windows as well. Okay? Instead of right-clicking and choosing the rename command, which would certainly work, you're going to click once on the name of the item that you want to change, My Project X, and then wait a second, and then click again on its name. There. It lights up its name so that it's ready to be replaced. That actually works in Windows, folks, whereas most people think that they have to right-click and choose rename, which is it's a bit of a move with the mouse. I know I'm being picky, but if you're really trying to work efficiently, to me this seems faster and smoother. Now just click to position the insertion point before the P of project and hit the delete key, which functions as a backspace key. Your delete key on the keyboard, on the Apple keyboard, functions the same way that a backspace key does on the Windows keyboard. And hit that delete key 3 times to get rid of MY and the space, and then hit the return key when you're done to lock in the new name. Okay. All right. Hey, what would we do? Oh, first of all, any questions on any of that? Easy enough. Okay. What would we do if we wanted the Intro to Mac folder to be back out on the desktop again? Just drag and drop it. Absolutely. Now, here's a theoretical question for you. Would we get the same result if I took this Intro to Mac folder and I dragged it to the alias that's over here in the sidebar? Would we get the same result if I did that than just dragging it out to some empty space on the desktop? Yeah. We sure would. Yeah, because the desktop here in the sidebar is simply an alias to the desktop folder. And this big open space that's filled with the lovely picture of Catalina Island is also just, if you want to think of it, an alias to the desktop folder. The desktop is nothing but a folder that's displayed in some, in a different way than any other folder. So let's go ahead and do that. Drag your Intro to Mac folder either to desktop here in the sidebar or to desktop here in the list of folders that live inside my home folder, right? This desktop would be a fair target as well. Or the biggest target of all, of course, is just the background of your screen. There we go. Nice job. And we talked about this earlier, but don't do it, but how would we throw that Intro to Mac folder away? How would we delete it? Trash. Drag it to the trash, exactly. There is, by the way, a move to trash command on the right-click shortcut menu. Take a look at that. If you right-click on the Intro to Mac folder on the desktop, you'll see that there is a move to trash command. Likewise, there's a move to trash command here under the File menu. Where is it? Yeah, it is there. Oh, it just wasn't the active thing. There we go. There's a move to trash command here. And it has a keyboard shortcut of Command Delete. Command Delete is the equivalent of move to trash. So several different ways you could do it. We'll take care of that at the end of our time together. We'll trash that Intro to Mac folder. And then we'll accordingly learn how to empty the trash as well, although from the sounds of it, one of you already figured that out, and I'm still nervous of the ramifications of that little sound I heard. Oh boy. All right, let's move into talking about applications. Okay, on the Mac, just like in the Windows environment, applications are all stored in a designated folder. It's called the Applications folder, whereas on the Windows side it's called Program Files. And interestingly, there are two applications folders. There's one that's at the root level of the hard drive, and there's another that's inside each user's home folder. The difference, of course, is if a user installs a software application and the software installer allows them to choose whether they want it to be installed globally for all users of that computer or individually for only them. Of course, if they install an application for only themselves, it would get installed into the applications folder that's inside the home folder. That's this guy right here. And you can see that I don't think I have really anything of that nature. Well, it looks like there's a Citrix Online program that was installed within the Mac 2 user account. So it's not globally installed for all users. But the 99% of all applications get installed globally for all users. You spend that kind of money on software, you want everybody on the Mac to be able to take advantage of it. And that applications folder lives back up at the Macintosh HD level. Use your sidebar to jump to the Macintosh hard drive. And there you'll see the folders that live at the root level of the hard drive. Right? There's the system folder, stay out of there. Most of us can only do damage if we get into the system folder. There's the library folder, again also stay out of there, generally speaking. Although you will sometimes be asked to work with the contents of the library folder. Let's say you're trying to uninstall a piece of software. While most software applications can be uninstalled simply by dragging their application icon to the trash can. It's literally that simple on the Mac. You don't have to go through a add remove programs kind of process like you do on Windows. But some applications, they'll leave some preferences files lingering even if you do trash their application file. And the preferences are stored in the library. So what you'll want to do before you attempt to uninstall any piece of software on a Mac is just go online, Google how do I uninstall such and such software, and if there are preference files that can be trashed, it'll tell you exactly where to go to find them. And generally speaking, they live in the library inside this preferences folder right here, and you can see there are all a bunch of COM files that are tagged by the software publisher like Adobe or Apple or Microsoft or Telestream and so forth. Okay, but I was really more interested in taking us into the applications folder. So click onto the applications folder that lives in Macintosh hard drive, and you can see either folders or just the application icon itself for each of the applications that we have installed on these computers. Some of these came with the Mac for free. A lot of them we've purchased and installed. Let's say we find a program that's not already on the dock. How about calculator? If we wanted to pin the calculator application to the dock, we could just drag it onto the dock. Now, the applications that you want to pin to the dock as favorites, they need to go in this leftmost portion of the dock. Whereas this portion of the dock here is reserved for just recent applications. Right? You can't really customize that much. And then over here is where you put folders and files that you want to use as favorites. But applications all go in the main part of it to the left of that first divider bar. So let's drag your calculator icon from the applications folder or window and down and drop it somewhere on the dock where you feel like it's appropriate. Be sure to drop it into some empty space of its own rather than dropping it onto some other application. And it should pin the calculator icon to the dock. Good? Excellent. Another way to do that, by the way, remember the Notes application that we played with earlier? Is it still available there as one of the recently used applications? Let's say you want to kind of elevate its status from being just something that you used recently to something that you want to be able to get to very easily and frequently. You could simply drag it from where it is now over into that left portion of the dock, like so, and drop it there, and that then permanently pins it to the dock, so it'll stay there as well. So the dock is very easy to manipulate. Let's get into an application. Why don't we use something a little more serious than just calculator or notes? Let's use Microsoft Word. Okay? Launch Microsoft Word either by double-clicking on it here in the Applications window where you see the actual program file, or single-clicking on its alias on the dock. Either way would accomplish the same thing. That's going to take a little longer to launch than the others that we've been using. Any questions while that's coming up?
One question. You talk about the docks and all the apps on the docks. You said as you add things to that, the icons get smaller. Is there a limit on how many you can put on that dock?
If there is, I haven't reached it yet.
Okay. But maybe it's super tiny icons?
I think the icons would just continue to shrink as you overfill it.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, here's an interesting tangent to that question. You can turn on a couple of different characteristics of the dock. Let's do this. If you find one of the dividers or empty space in the dock, actually find one of the dividers, I should be more explicit. Find one of those two dividers. Your mouse pointer turns into a big vertical double-headed arrow. You can obviously then click and hold and drag up or down to change the size or scaling of the dock and its icons. That's what that means. So you can kind of manually control overall how big you want the dock to be and therefore how many icons you could comfortably fit on it. I'm guessing that there probably is a limit. I just haven't reached it. And then also, go ahead and make your dock pretty small. Make it almost not quite ridiculously small, but make it pretty small. And then do a right-click in that same empty space so that you're not on one of the icons, but rather right-click on one of the dividers. And let's turn magnification on. Choose the command turn magnification on. What that will do is it'll make it so that the dock icon that you point to gets bigger, so it's easier to see. It's doing the wave. Yes, exactly right. Well said. It's doing the wave. As you cycle through them, wow. This gives me epileptic seizures, but some people might really like it. And so that's one of the options. You can also turn hiding on. If you do another right click in the divider area of the dock, turning hiding on will make it so that the dock drops out of view, makes it invisible or descend out of view unless you point to the bottom of the screen. Okay? And that's great if you're doing screen recordings or presentations and you don't want the dock to be visible, or just if you want more space on your screen. Right? To cause the dock to display, simply ram your mouse down at the bottom of the window where it should be, and it reappears temporarily and disappears when you move away from it. Exactly like the taskbar can be set to auto-hide in the Windows environment. Okay, if you don't mind, let's turn off both of those commands about the dock that I just had you turn on. Right-clicking in an empty space, we'll say turn hiding off, make it so that the dock doesn't auto-hide anymore. And then likewise, right-click and turn magnification off so that the dock doesn't do the wave. I'm going to use that. That's a great visual. I like it. And feel free to make the dock icons bigger, or make the dock bigger if you want, by dragging on one of the dividers upward. The dock also can be repositioned on the screen to either the left side or the right side instead of being on the bottom. It can't be placed at the top because the menu bar is at the top. Okay, by now Microsoft Word has had plenty of time to launch, and let's create a new blank document. You can double click on the blank document template there in the welcome screen, or since it's already selected, you could just click the create button down in the bottom right as well. While you see buttons like this, always know that the button that's blue will respond to the return key on the keyboard. In the same way that in the Windows environment, there's always some button that's the default button that will respond if you were to just press the return key on the keyboard. So Mac OS makes that button distinct by turning it blue. And so now we've got this new blank document open. Start by typing your name. Just type first and last name. I should point out that there's a black dot beneath the Microsoft Word icon. I know I keep harping on that, but I just want it to become so ingrained in your memories But that black dot on the dock beneath the Word icon reminds you that Word is running. It's open and taking up space in memory. Good? Okay, fantastic. All right, so we've typed a little bit. Let's say we want to save. We want to save this document. You can either click the Save button on the Quick Access toolbar right here, or you can go to File and Save, or Save As. Since this is the first time we'd be saving this document, choosing either Save or Save As would behave as though we chose Save As, because it knows that it needs to give us the opportunity to specify the name and location of the file. So choose either Save or Save As in this case. And what's called a sheet will drop down out of the title bar of the window. This is called a sheet. It's not a dialog box per se, because it's modal to the window. You see how when I move the window around, the sheet moves around too. It's not a separate dialog box. Okay? I just, you guys are technical, so I want you to know the technical names for these little bits about the Mac interface. We've got the same sidebar that we've seen in all of our Finder windows over here on the left-hand side of the Save As sheet to make it easy to navigate around. You could jump quickly to your desktop, to your Documents folder, to your iCloud drive, to a network file server if you had the credentials to log into one. It's all right there, easy to get into, right? Let's navigate to our desktop. Click on Desktop on the sidebar. Immediately, Desktop appears here. Now, the goal when you're saving is to get the folder in which you want to save to be right here, to show right here. So this is telling you what it thinks your current target is. As we click on the Intro to Mac folder, Intro to Mac will become the target folder. As we click on the Project X folder, Project X will become the target folder. And just like in the Finder windows, we can change the view as well, right? If you don't like this column type of view of your folder system, you can come to this menu right here and say, you know what, I'm more comfortable in the icon view. Show me this stuff as icons, or show it to me in a list, right? Now, let's say we go into list view. Now how do we get back and forth between folders? Because the column view made it so easy. You just scroll back to the left if you made a wrong turn. Well, you can use this menu up top here, and it shows you, kind of in an upside-down pyramid, where you are in the folder system. You're in the Project X folder, which lives in the Intro to Mac folder, which lives on the desktop, which is part of the Mac 2 user folder, or home folder, which lives in the users folder, which ultimately lives on the Macintosh hard drive. So there's your upside-down hierarchy, or path, or pyramid, right? Does that make sense? Okay, beautiful. Now you guys make my job so easy. Right, so in any of the views, icon view even, same thing. You can say, oh, I took a wrong turn. Let me go back to my desktop. Or, let me go back to Intro Mac or classical music. You can, and when you're on desktop, double-clicking on an icon, boom, boom, goes into it. There we go. It appears as the target folder. Double-click, goes into it. It appears as the target folder. You can back out using the menu here. Of course, you can use the back and forward buttons, right? Those are so easy as well to navigate back just like you would in a web browser. But I think it's important to understand the hierarchy of the filing system and how to easily get around within it. Okay, let's go into our Project X folder. I'm going to switch back into the columns view as well, and do the same if you don't mind. There we go. And then, of course, in addition to choosing the destination for this file, we'd want to give it a good file name. Let's call it just practice.docx. Practice.docx will be a fine name. Of course, you can create a new folder on the fly if you feel the need to put this new document into its own separate folder. There's almost always a new folder button here in the Save As sheet in whatever application you're working in, so that you can create new folders right here on the fly rather than having to abort the process, go out to the Finder, make the new folder, and then try it again. And lastly, you can choose your file format. This is exactly like the Save As Type menu in a Windows environment. It lets you choose what file format you'd like this document to be saved as. The docx file format is the default because it's the most common and probably arguably the most practical for most Word users. Okay, let's make sure that Project X appears as our target folder right up at the top there, and that the name practice.docx is in, and the file format is as a Word document.docx. Any questions before we hit the save button? Like, hey Tim, what if I wanted to save onto my OneDrive or into a SharePoint site? Any questions like that?
Sure.
Okay, good, thanks. Thanks for taking the bait. That's what this button right here would do. Online locations would switch the sheet over into pointing you to cloud-based locations. And not just every cloud-based location like Dropbox or Box.com or Google Drive, but exclusively OneDrive. Why? Because that's Microsoft's cloud storage service, right? OneDrive and SharePoint sites as well. If your organization uses SharePoint sites, then you can save directly into a document library in a SharePoint site. All right, so if you click the Online Locations button, the whole sheet will kind of change up a good bit and say, well, okay, we see you want to call this file Practice. Where do you want to put it? And it doesn't seem very flexible, like, yikes, you mean I only get one menu of where I can choose? Well, this little guy right here, you're going to need to know this. This little down pointing arrow here that sits to the right of the file name will expand the Save As sheet to give you more options. And that I could have said that could be true of the other sheet that we were just in as well, you know, the one for the local locations. But the first time you go into that local locations Save As sheet and you expand it, then the program, in this case Microsoft Word, remembers your desire and will bring it out in its expanded view from then on. But the first time you ever use a Mac application to save a file, it will come, the Save As sheet will come in this collapsed, very minimalistic view. And your users might wonder, yikes, how do I get to such and such a folder? Because that's all they get is one menu of some of the common choices for folders to save into. So always, always do this yourselves and recommend to your users that you expand that Save As sheet to open up the options. All right, at that point then, in this room, you'll probably see the personal OneDrive. Actually, you may not all be signed into OneDrive on the student machines. I am here, so I can demonstrate if you watch my screen. I could go into my Trainer 1 OneDrive folder or into one of our SharePoint sites that we use, and we teach SharePoint here as well. So there's several sites and stuff to point to. All right, you could go into our Accelerate Root site, and I think there's a document library in there. There. So I could, if I wanted to, save this up into that SharePoint document library or onto my OneDrive. Saving it in the cloud has the distinct advantage, and both of these are considered cloud, OneDrive and SharePoint, has the distinct advantage of then enabling autosave and allowing co-authoring. Co-authoring is Microsoft's branding of multiple users getting into the same file at the same time and seeing each other's changes in real time, which is revolutionary as well. I know it's been around since about 2007, but I still get goosebumps talking about it because that's just radical. That is so powerful. All right, let's say we change our mind and we don't want to save in the cloud. We'll just click on the On My Mac button, which is the converse of the Online Locations button that we clicked a moment ago to change the sheet to bring us here. So we'll click On My Mac, and the sheet for local storage reappears, and it even has remembered that we were pointing to our Project X folder. Any questions on any of that? Wonderful. Save the file, and its name appears in the title bar as it should, right? And it tells you that it's been saved to your Mac as opposed to saved to a cloud location. Autosave is not an option when you save locally. Let's say you wanted to create a PDF of this file. The native language of your Mac OS screen rendering engine is called Display PDF. They literally used an Adobe technology. Think of that, Apple working with Adobe technology, even though they hate each other. They used an Adobe technology as the core of the screen rendering and display. So PDFs just flow easily out of any Mac application. Let's go to the print command. We could save as, right? You could save as, but that's because Microsoft has enabled saving in the PDF file format. But literally, we can also just use the print command and this works from any software application, whether they've added in the export as PDF capability or not, look in the bottom left-hand corner. There's a little menu that says PDF, right? Click it and say Save as PDF. That is available in every print command. That's amazing. In any software application, you can quickly just rip off a PDF by using that command there because of the tight, interwoven nature of the PDF language into the Mac OS. So as we say Save as PDF, it brings up, again, a Save As sheet, just like you'd expect. And you can, let's put it in the same Project X folder, just calling it practice.pdf. We even get the opportunity to fill in the metadata of the PDF, right? All those additional fields, the information about the file, if we wanted to. And click Save when you're ready. There. That's how easy it is to generate a PDF version of any file that you're working on. Just use the good old print command. Let's say that we wanted to open up a document with a little more text in it. Click File and Open. Here in Microsoft Word, File and Open. The Open command, unlike the Save As command, does appear as a dialog box, not as a sheet. Okay, just a distinction. And let's navigate to our, well, we want to get into the classical music folder inside the Intro to Mac folder, which is on the desktop. So it's up to you. Could be 6 of one, half dozen the other, which route you decide to take. I'm going to crawl up from beneath it because I'm already almost halfway there, right? From Project X, if I just back up the hierarchy to Intro to Mac, then it can go easily into classical music. You might have chosen, on the other hand, to say, well, let me just get kind of back up to the top of the pyramid or desktop, and then we see Intro to Mac, and we can crawl our way downward. Either way will get you there. It's just whatever approach you think will get you there fastest. So you can go upstream with this menu here, and you can go downstream using the sidebar and working your way down. Does that make sense? Okay, sorry if I'm harping on things that are probably too easy. Let's open up our Composer Biographies document. It's got a few pages of text, and so that'll give us some room to play. Okay. In Word and in most other text environments, you can use some efficient selection techniques to highlight text. Of course, you can drag across text like this. Right? Of course. We all know that. You can click and hold and drag, or point, click, and drag to highlight text like so. If you wanted to delete it, format it, cut it, copy it, whatever. But you can also do things like this. You can double-click on a word to select a single word. You could triple-click on a word to select an entire paragraph. And that's true on the Windows side as well. Nothing new there or distinct there. You can use shift-click, right? A regular click followed by a shift-click to select a range of text, just like we used it to select a range of files when we were back there in a Finder window looking at a list of files or folders. So try that. Click in front of a word somewhere, and then point your mouse elsewhere, but don't click there yet. Just point. Holding down the Shift key on your keyboard, then click the mouse, and it will select everything from where the cursor was blinking to where you're now pointing and you did your shift click. Did that work okay? Outstanding. Let's say that you wanted to take that text and move it somewhere else in the paragraph. So we can use cut and paste, or we can use drag and drop. We'll do them both, one at a time. To use cut and paste, all of those commands are under the Edit menu. Under the Edit menu. That's a universal standard as well. Remember how I told you that Apple has made stringent requirements of all the software companies out there. If you're going to develop software for the Mac, here are some things that you must do, some guidelines you must abide by. The cut, copy, and paste commands have to be under the Edit menu, and they have to use these keyboard shortcuts. Command X, Command C, and Command V. And you won't find a piece of software that deviates from those standards, which is great because then a user doesn't have to relearn 50% of each new software application They know exactly where the save command is going to be in its keyboard shortcut. They know exactly where print is going to be. Cut, copy, and paste are always in the same place. The quit command is always in the same place. Preferences likewise. It's great. So let's cut. I can either go to the edit menu and choose cut, or use the keyboard shortcut Command X. Of course, you could have right-clicked on the selected text and chosen cut as well, but you all know that already. And then simply click where you want the text to go. I don't care where you put it, just put it between words rather than in the middle of a word. And either go back to the edit menu and choose paste, or Command V as in Victor. There are also buttons on the ribbon that you can use to cut, copy, and paste right in here as well. So 3 or 4 different ways of getting the same job done. Is that satisfactory? Okay, wonderful. The undo command, likewise, is always in the same place in every Mac software application. It's always the first command under the edit menu. Let's say we change our mind about that cut and paste. Go to the edit menu and choose undo the paste. Command Z, by the way, is always the keyboard shortcut for undo. I think they chose Command Z because the letter Z on the keyboard is literally the closest key to the command key except for cut, copy, and paste, X, C, and V, right? So Command Z is probably the easiest keyboard shortcut to physically perform, and therefore it made a reasonable choice for a command that's arguably the most important and useful command available to us. So the first undo will undo the paste, then go back and undo the cut with a second choosing of the undo command, and that will bring the original text back into its original location. The redo command becomes available if you have undone things, right? So that you can waffle back and forth and undo and redo until you finally make up your mind. Very good. Any questions on working with an application like this? All right. Let's say that we are done using these 2 documents, but we anticipate needing to get back into Word relatively soon. Rather than quitting out of Word, let's just close these documents, okay? Not a good habit if you're truly done using the program. If you're truly done using it for several hours at least, you should quit it to get it out of memory and just manage your finite amount of RAM memory. But if you know that you're going to be jumping right back into Word, simply close the document windows, clicking the red X buttons for each of them to close them up, but that doesn't quit the program like it would on a Windows PC. Okay. Next, click into that Finder window that we left open back there on the desktop and navigate to the desktop in your sidebar. Navigate to the desktop in your sidebar. Let's say that you wanted to get back into working with that practice file, but you just can't remember where you saved it. You can search for it. You can search for it, right? There's a search bar in the toolbar of every Finder window. Let's try it. Click into the search box and type practice. It gives you the choice. It says, do you want to search this Mac or just the desktop folder that you were pointing to? So you can narrow the search results considerably if you choose to only have it search or show results from searching just the desktop folder. Let's do that because this is a pretty long list of results. Click desktop up there in the search to refine the search to just point to desktop, and look at that, it found the 2 files. Now that file didn't exist but 5 minutes ago, right? And it's already been indexed. Like every good computer, it keeps a database of the files and it updates the indexes in that database so that your searches go more quickly. Not only does it index the file names, but the file contents as well. We could search on the word Mozart, for example, and it would find every file, not just whose name has Mozart, but whose content, textual content, has Mozart. Try it. Change the search term from practice to Mozart. And look at that. Composer biographies is included among the search results because the word Mozart appears in that Word document several times. Nice. So there's a good fast search engine for searching your hard drive for files that you can't remember where you put. That hopefully is a comfort. Any questions or thoughts on that? Okay, cool. To clear out the search and just use this window back to showing the regular contents of some folder or other, of course, just click the X that appears here to the right of the search field. Let's do that. And the window returns to being used as just a way to see what's in the desktop folder or whichever folder you have active. Okay. Close that window, clicking the red X in its top left corner. And let me show you another search. In Windows, we use Cortana to search for programs or, just about anything else, right? The closest equivalent that we have to Cortana on the Windows side is called Spotlight on the Mac. A Spotlight search searches globally your whole hard drive. Generally speaking, it's what you're going to use when you want to find an application, not necessarily to search for a document. So if you're wanting to quickly launch the calculator application because you haven't pinned it to the dock, and so it's not easily launchable, and you don't want to go over to your applications folder. Well, in other words, Spotlight Search just gives you another way to say, hey Mac, find for me the application whose name starts with calculator or something like that. Or here's one, a practical one. I was doing this just yesterday on these machines. I needed to run the updater for Microsoft Office. I wanted to make sure we had the very latest updates for the Office suite on all these computers. And launching that little utility is a little bit of a, well, it's hard to find that program. It's buried away under some subfolder inside the applications folder. But we can use Spotlight Search to quickly search for any program that has, I knew the name of it was Auto Update. And it worked beautifully. So here's how you launch a Spotlight Search. 2 ways. I'll give you the old slow way and then the fast keyboard shortcut way. This little magnifying glass icon right up here is your Spotlight Search icon. Click it once and the Spotlight Search box appears kind of toward the middle-ish part of your screen. And then you can just start typing the search. All right, now let's abort that. Either just click somewhere else in a blank space to abort that, or hit the escape key, we'll abort it as well. The faster way to do it, Command spacebar on your keyboard. In that order, holding down the Command key, and while it's down, tap the spacebar. How easy is that, right? Command spacebar should be configured as the Spotlight Search keyboard shortcut. Curiously enough, and I think I've got it configured on all of your computers to behave that way, curiously enough, it's not on mine, so that'll give me a good excuse to show you how a user might have disabled that keyboard shortcut and how to get it back active again. But nonetheless, I'll click my Spotlight Search button so we can we can work together. Let's say we're looking for the calculator application, right? Type CAL, and immediately it starts thinking, well, what do you want to launch here? The calculator app, the calendar app, the make calendar app, and the search results just keep pouring in over time. So it's not just for launching applications, but that's what it's primarily best at. This Spotlight Search is best at letting you quickly launch an app. And then you can use the down arrow key or the up arrow key on your keyboard to highlight the one you want to launch, and then the return key to say, go, launch it. Let's go ahead and launch the calculator app. Hit the return key while calculator app is selected, and it launches. How did that go? Good? Okay, wonderful. Now the Spotlight Search should be available to you even if the Finder app is not the current app. So it doesn't belong to Finder per se. Well, I hate to say that, it kind of does. But you could still launch Spotlight Search even if you were in Calculator or Word or Photoshop or anything else, because theoretically no other Mac software programs are supposed to use Command Space as a keyboard shortcut in them, because Apple has said, hey, we've got Command Space, don't use it for any of your commands, make it always available as the way to launch Spotlight Search. All right, try that out just to make sure I'm not lying to you. Hit Command Space even when Calculator is the active application. And does the Spotlight Search appear? Fantastic. Okay, you don't have to search for anything else. I think you got the hang of that. Let's close up our calculator, clicking its close button. This is another one of those self-quitting applications. If you were worried or concerned that it's not going to quit itself, this is another one of those self-quitting apps. And to verify that, when you closed its last window, its only window, look down at the icon on the dock, and there's no black dot beneath it. Or here's another thing to note. Let's remove the calculator app from our dock. Okay? Rip that calculator app right up off the dock like so. And now use Spotlight to launch the calculator again, and let's see what happens. So Command Space, or for me, hit the Spotlight search icon. If the old search is still there, great. And then just hit return and say, yeah, that's the one. It launches. But now the calculator app appears on the dock over in this area because it's not one of the ones that we've pinned as our favorites. Now when you quit the calculator app, the dot will disappear from the calculator icon here. There. Good? Okay, fantastic. All right. My Spotlight search keyboard shortcut not working makes for a great segue into our last topic, which is personalizing our Mac. Let's go to the Apple menu and choose System Preferences. System Preferences on the Mac is like Control Panel on the PC. Okay? System Preferences is a separate program. It's not part of Finder. As you can see, it's got its own menu bar commands. And like Control Panel, at least like the older Control Panel, well, even like the newer Settings window in Windows 10, the icons are kind of grouped up. And we can do things like change our desktop background. For example, if we click Desktop and Screensaver, that system preference will load. It was the second one from the top. Sorry if you missed it when I clicked on it. Let me show you that again. This guy right here, Desktop and Screensaver. Click on it once, and then switch over to the desktop instead of the screensaver side of things using the tabs at the top. And this is where you can change your desktop background picture. They've got pictures that are dynamic. That is, they've taken several different pictures of the same scene at different times of the day. So the dynamic desktop pictures will literally change to a nighttime picture of Catalina at night, or an evening, or a morning. It's remarkable. It's actually gorgeous. And the picture just, as the hours of the day tick away in real time, the picture will cross-fade, cross-dissolve into the next picture. So you really get a sense of the time of day at Catalina. Or the standard desktop pictures here that are just static. Okay. Of course, you can use solid colors as your background as well by clicking into the colors category here on the left. But if you don't mind, let's set it back to that first dynamic desktop option, just so all the desktops look the same here in our training room. To go back to the collection of system preference icons, you can either use the back button here, or you can use the grid button here. Either way, it'll get us back to the main window of system preferences. Again, either using the back button or the grid button here. Let's take a look at a couple of other system preferences that you might be interested in. One that I'm particularly interested in is the one that deals with the Spotlight and not you being able to use that Command Space keyboard shortcut that's so useful. Well, let's say that my eyes just aren't seeing this Spotlight icon, right? There's so many things here, I don't find it right away. Fortunately, we can search the system preferences for whatever one of these system preference icons will hopefully give us what we want. So I'm going to click into the search box and start typing Spotlight. S-P-O, and you can see how the ones that might meet my need or suit my purposes become lit up. Wonderful. I see, oh, Spotlight, of course, why didn't I see that before? But it's not just looking at, what I've typed, but other commands or settings that might have to do with that particular capability. All right, I found it. I'll click Spotlight. There we go. And we can see that there's a button in the lower left called Keyboard Shortcuts. That's where I want to go to make sure that my Command Space keyboard shortcut is enabled. I'll click it once. That takes us into the keyboard system preference. So it moved from one system preference, Spotlight, to another. And then, well, that's curious. Show Spotlight Search is enabled. Oh, but somebody has changed the keyboard shortcut on me. One of my trainers must have done that. Let me say restore the defaults. Boom. There we go. Now the keyboard shortcut is Command Space, whereas a moment ago it was Option Command Space. So now I've got the defaults restored, and it'll behave as it should have. While we're here in the keyboard system preference, click over into the keyboard tab where you can set things like the key repeat rate and the delay until repeat. Okay? Things that you would also be able to set on the Windows side. Let's go back to the grid, clicking the grid icon here to go back to the full collection of system preferences. Some of the other system preferences that might appeal to gentlemen of your more technical ilk might be things like network. Let's take a look at network. And you'll see the different means by which the user is maybe connected to the network through a hardwired Ethernet connection or a Wi-Fi connection. And how are they getting their IP address using DHCP or manually and so forth. Okay. All right, let's go back to showing all of the system preferences again. And let's say that you wanted to be able to join, let's see, I'm trying to find, there we go. Let's say you wanted to be able to attach to a domain, right? Something that you Windows network administrators are probably going to have to do. Well, that's available in Users and Groups. Click on the Users and Groups icon. And first of all, before we get into the connecting to a domain, this is where you could add another user to this Mac, right? I've just got one user configured on this computer. You've got two on those computers plus guest. You've got trainer and student, right? Okay, yeah, exactly. And the trainer account is a full administrator account, and the student account is just a standard non-administrator account, such that if you try to install software there when you're logged in as a student, it forces you to provide the trainer credentials before allowing you to proceed, just like you would expect. Now, if you click Login Options down here, click Login Options at the bottom of the panel on the left-hand side, that's where you can join a network account server. It's all grayed out because you're all logged in as a non-administrator. Well, so am I for that matter. But you would have to click this lock icon and then provide the administrator privilege, the administrator credentials before you'd be able to make changes to any of these things. Obviously, they're important. You don't want just anybody to be able to tinker with this stuff. I'll go ahead and log in on mine just so you can see what it looks like. There we go. So now the lock icon has moved to its unlock state and network account server, and I'll click join, and there you go. Beyond that, I'm not a network administrator by any stretch of the imagination, so I can't take you much further, but you would probably know what to do from there, or could be taught by somebody who's done it before in your particular setting. This is also where you can change the user's password and where you can enable guest access if you want to. I mentioned it earlier, but now is a good time to repeat it, that guest access is disabled by default. This checkbox is not checked by default. Okay, I'll go ahead and lock that up again. And let's go back to system preferences, unless there are questions on this users and group system preference. Okay, I know we're a few minutes over, so I don't want to delay much longer, but are there any of these that you think, oh, I really need to know about such and such? Or, for that matter, anything else about the Mac before we adjourn for the day? Okay, wonderful. Then, if you would close the System Preferences window, this is another one of those self-quitting programs. I know I should be having you go up and choose the quit command just to get in the habit, right? But you're all smart enough to learn the distinction. Which programs quit themselves when you close their last windows, which ones don't. You're observant enough to know that. Has Word quit out of itself yet? Looking at the Word icon on the dock, we see, no, it's not a self-quitting program. It's not by Apple. And as far as I know, it's only the Apple programs that do that. And even them, not all of them do that. It's usually more of the small utility type programs like text editor or calculator, calendar, and so forth. But a more robust program is usually not going to quit itself when you close its last window. Let's go ahead and quit out of Word manually. To quit out of a program, you have to be in the program. So click on the Word icon, or what's another way we could switch into the Microsoft Word application? What'd you say?
Control tab.
You said Control Tab, but I think you meant the Mac equivalent, which is Command Tab, right? Yes. I can easily overlook that from somebody who is a Windows expert, but you're going to have to change.
Well, instead of Alt Tab, I was thinking Command, but
Oh, okay. Well, in all fairness, you've got all three keys, right? And granted, it's going to take a little bit to train your mind to think, okay, I'm sitting at a Mac right now. The equivalent of the Alt key is Option. The equivalent of what would usually be the Control key on the Windows is going to be the Command key 9 times out of 10. All right, cool. I'm sorry if I'm poking too much fun, but it's such an easy target. That difference between those keys. Yeah, but exactly right. Well done. Command Tab brings up this little panel in the middle and allows you to switch back and forth between open applications. As we switch out of, or switch back into Word, now we could use Command Q on the keyboard or just run up to the Word menu and choose Quit.